Welcome to the July 11th Board of Selectmen's meeting. Please be aware that the meeting is being audio and video recorded and will be shown on the internet and local access television. If you'd please stand and join me in the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We have a pretty lengthy agenda, so I'll try to keep it moving. First up, we have patrolman interviews. Chief, do you want to start with the first one, or do you have something before?
Do you have a certain order that we have?
We have Johnson, Sanchez, Thom. If you'd like, you can pull the chair up to the microphone. Welcome. So we all have your resume. I think we've all had a chance to review it, but if you'd like to start out by giving us some background on yourself,
Sure.
Introducing yourself a little bit.
So my name's Amber Johnson. I've lived in West Bridgewater for 27 years. I've worked in the community for over 10 years. I am completing my criminal justice degree at Bridgewater State University, and I am right now working as a customer service rep at Mass DOT. I want to be a police officer because I've had law enforcement involved in my life for as long as I can remember, and they've helped me out so much. I want to have the opportunity to give back the way they've done to me.
Okay. You said you're currently in school. When do you expect to graduate?
I'm completing online courses, so within the next year.
Okay. And how do you like your current job as a customer service rep? Do you like the interaction with people?
I do. I interact with people on a daily basis, from nice to bad. I've worked as a matron for the town of West Bridgewater, so it's definitely given me the opportunity to work with people and see different types of people and definitely build my character more.
If we were to ask your current boss over there, what are the 3 best qualities you have, what would he or she say?
She would definitely say I'm personable, organized, and hardworking.
And on the other hand, if 3 things that you needed to work on, what do you think that she would say?
She would definitely say my time management, my ability to work with difficult customers, and she would say probably to take longer lunches.
Okay, thank you. And can you tell us what you've done? I know you have the education, what you've done to really mentally and physically prepare yourself for police work.
So as a matron, of course, you see it being in that police station and dealing with offenders. You get an aspect on how to work with them and how to not get too intense with them and kind of just lay low and get things done. And as for training as a police officer, I've been running every day and getting my body physically in shape to deal with the reality of it and the work of it. And definitely dealing with people on a daily basis has made me realize that I have the ability to work with offenders and cooperate with them and get them where they need to be. And
thank you. Selectman Marogeo?
Yes, it's very, very interesting because I'm sort of hooked up with District 5 down there, and it's interesting in the many functions that they do from the district. It takes an awful lot. Do you have any field training as far as a police officer in West Bridgewater here?
I do not, just the matron training. I went to the state police but didn't make it all the way. So right now I'm just the matron.
Why do you want to be a police officer in West Bridgewater?
I've grown up in West Bridgewater. It's my home. It's been my home for 27 years. I know the community. I've worked in the community. And I've wanted to be a police officer since I graduated high school. They've helped me so much, and I want to have that opportunity to help others. I definitely know the people of West Bridgewater, and I want to be a part of the community more. Being a police officer is something I've always wanted to do, just to help people and make the town a better place to live.
Would you consider yourself a people's person?
I would definitely consider myself a people's person. I've worked at the local Trookies and within the town. I associate with everyone. I'm personable. I get to know you, and I'm definitely a people's person.
And your computer experience?
Skilled, highly skilled.
Highly skilled.
Fast typer. I learn quick. I'm good on phones.
Okay, I have no other questions.
Just looking to raise.
Can you think of a specific event in your life that contributed to your career choice in law enforcement?
So there's one event where it kind of family related, but my parents were having an
I
issue.
don't have to get too personal. if you-
Yeah.
And so the cops had to come to my house and kind of just discuss the situation or decrease the situation. And we were all so young that they like came up to me and kind of sat us down and like told us what was going on. And I guess that's like the moment that I knew that since it all like happened before, that I knew I wanted to be that person to someone.
So you saw qualities in that officer that you wanted to emulate?
Yes.
Okay. What question haven't we asked you that you wish you had the opportunity to have been asked and speak to it?
Definitely why I want the position. I love West Bridgewater. I've grown up in this town, and I want to keep growing within this town. It's something that being a police officer is what I've always wanted to do. There's not a job that you could give me that I wouldn't want or wouldn't want to do. Being a cop in West Bridgewater is something I've always wanted to do and looked forward to, and it's something that I hope I have the opportunity to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how you doing?
You can take a seat right in front.
Thank you very much.
Okay, welcome. So we all have your resume, but could you start out by giving us some of your background and maybe some things that might not be on the resume that you'd initially like to share with us?
Sure. Well, I'm a 24-year-old, born in Puerto Rico, moved to Florida, started my education for criminal justice in Florida, came up here 5 years ago, continued my criminal justice education at UMass Boston. I'm pursuing a career as a police officer in hopes of becoming a K-9 unit eventually. As some of you may know, I was here about 2 years ago. There was 2 candidates in front of me. They got picked. They were awesome candidates. I've worked with them, learned a lot from them. So I hope to get the position, continue doing what they're doing, following their steps.
Okay, thank you. So if we were to ask your current boss, what are 3 things that he or she really thinks are positive traits about you, what do you think those would be?
Loyalty, ability to communicate, and my ability to work as a team, be a team member.
And on the other hand, if he or she were to say a few things that you needed improvement on, what do you think those would be?
I would say one of them may be attention to details. Work on my, I could get lazy at times, so work on that and organize myself a little better.
Okay. And aside from your education, what else have you done to mentally and physically prepare yourself for a job in police work?
I started working with the West Bridgewater Police Department a year ago as a dispatcher. I went through 400 hours in the Plymouth Police Reserve Academy. I've been CPR certified, TASER certified. I've also been appointed as a special police officer, so I've done my about 300 hours of training, field training with several officers.
How often do you currently work? Do you do about 15 hours a week? Is that what you guys do?
16. So as a dispatcher, we have a 2-day a week schedule.
All right. Thank you. Selectman Marrero?
Yes, and of course, you have a chance, and I see you have a lot of field training there.
Yes, sir.
And being known, and you definitely want to be a police officer in West Bridgewater.
Yes, sir, I do.
You also speak a foreign language, as we see an awful lot around our surrounding towns there.
Yes, sir.
And what language do you speak?
Spanish.
Speak Spanish. That's a plus. Would you say you're a people's person?
I am. I love working with the community. I love speaking with people. I've done a fair share of community activities. Last year we did the Cats Camp, so I did that. Howard School Ice Cream, and as well with other activities involving the community. This year the Cats Camp just began, so I'm going to help out on that.
So you like to work with the community and the
Yes,
people in the community.
Yes, sir, I do.
How do you react with the children as far as the schools?
I'm sorry?
How you react as far as the schools, and I know now we got the resource officer there, and how interested are you in, I know that they have a very, very unique program to teach the children, and how do you feel about moving that program on, or would you get involved with that, with the children?
I would definitely get involved. Like I said, I've done my fair share of community involved activities, and I get along with the kids awesome. We do. I've ran against them. I've competed against them. They've competed against me. I get along with them. So anything to help the community, like I said, work with the students, and moving forward with that, I think I would agree. I'd be good for.
So you're working now as a full-time dispatcher for us? Or do you have any other job besides that?
Part-time, so I do 2 days a
part-time?
week, yep, special police officer, so I get to do details as well.
And if we do vote for you tonight, Dave, how long before you can come aboard and actually work for us? You have to give a notice?
I immediately, if this was to all go through, I'd have to go through a police academy, 6 months.
Right, I
And then-
understand that. You'll be available immediately.
Immediately, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Selectman Rice?
Can you think of a specific event in your life that contributed to your decision to pursue a career in law enforcement?
Yes, ma'am. In Daytona, I was coming back from school, going to my apartment. It was a small cul-de-sac. I was entering the cul-de-sac. There was two men ran out, one of them with a purse. One of them ran towards me. The other one ran away. Long story short, I was able to identify the armed robber that passed me. And from there on, that's kind of what drove me.
It's a little scary of an event to happen,
Kind of intense, yeah.
What question didn't we ask you that you wish we had, that you would have liked the opportunity to answer and tell us more about yourself?
I feel like you guys have asked me everything. I do, like I said, I do plan on following the legacy other police officers have started. So that's what I'm working towards too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or any questions for the board?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I know it's a little awkward, but we do have a 7 o'clock public hearing. So what I would ask you to do is to read it into the record at 7 o'clock, acknowledge who may be here as the applicant, inform them that we are just finishing up interviews. We can return back to interviews at that point, and once we're done with the interviews, we'll go back to the public hearing.
Okay. Chief, we're just going to wait 1 second. We have to open a hearing and, pursuant to Chapter 140 of the Massachusetts General Laws, a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, July 11, 2018, at 7 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Town Hall, 65 North Main Street, West Bridgewater, Massachusetts, on the application for a Class 1 car dealer's license for Boston Trailer LLC to be located at 635 Manley Street, West Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Interested parties are invited to be present and to be heard, and this was published in the Brockton Enterprise, Thursday, June 21st, 2018. So is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. And now we're going to turn back to the police department interviews and come back to the hearing in a few minutes. Okay, welcome. So we all have your resume, but if you want to introduce yourself, give some background, and elaborate on anything that your resume might not include that you'd like to tell the board.
All right, so good afternoon, everyone. I'm Thom. I was born and raised in this town, lived here my whole life. Went to West Bridgewater Middle Senior High School, graduated 2010. Was very active with the sports teams involved, football, hockey. Was well liked amongst the community, and I have always had a sincere interest in law enforcement. So for college, I went to Mass Maritime Academy, got a degree in emergency management. I went there for the Pillar Military Regiment that the school consisted of. Keep my head on good shoulders, and then from there, I got a job at the Suffolk County Sheriff's Department, currently a corrections officer in Boston, and it's taught me a lot on how to deal with certain situations, how to keep my head on a swivel and be calm, cool, and collect. It's a tough career to get into, but with the right training, I'm willing to learn. I'm a fast learner, and I'm going to do the best that I can for the town to make sure that everything runs smoothly.
Okay, thank you. If we were to talk to your current boss, what would he or she say are 3 positive attributes that you have displayed over your time there?
So the first attribute that my boss would definitely say is I'm a hard worker. I'm always looking for overtime, working holidays, weekends. I'm willing to sacrifice anything I can for the department to make sure that, you know, I'm doing the best that I can to learn everything there is to learn and to better provide for my future. And one of the other good things that he'll tell you about is that, you know, I'm always there to help one another. I know if I see that someone's feeling down and out, I'll try to pick them back up, boost them up, and lift their spirits a little bit. The third thing that they would say is that, you know, I'm willing to learn. So I'm always going to, you know, do the best that I can to make sure that I get all the facts and become a better person as I'm learning and growing every day as an individual. And hopefully that will provide me the best knowledge to take me into my next career.
And on the other hand, if you were to say a few things that need improvement, what do you think that he'd say about that?
One thing that I would have to work on, I know it's been an issue with me, is my public speaking. I'm working on it, but I have taken courses in college to get better at it. And every day I'm, you know, learning how to control it, act a little more calm, cool, and collect when it dealing with the general public. But I think I've grown a little better at it over the years, but that would be one of them.
Okay. Aside from education, current employment, I know that can be a stressful job, but what else have you done to mentally and physically prepare yourself for a career in police work?
When I'm not working, I'm spending a lot of time in the gym. I currently have a boxing membership over at Bishop's on Manley Street. Eddie Bishop there is a great instructor. And I'm also learning, you know, the Mass General Laws, taking time out of my day to make sure that I'm getting a head jump on that in case I am fortunate enough to get selected. And you might see me running around the town. I'm a big advocate for physical fitness and cardio and CrossFit and all that, so definitely really enthusiastic about it.
Okay, thank you. Selectman Murrah?
Yes. Do you have any field training with the West Bridgewater Police Department?
Could you repeat that, sir?
Field training? In other words, have you worked any shifts with West Bridgewater? Or?
I have not, sir.
Okay, so you have no field training?
No, sir.
As far as I go. Would you consider yourself a people's person and when you react with people?
I would. You know, I'm always going out of my way to help other people out. And, you know, if I'm not at the gym or working, I'm helping my family around the house, neighbors, whatever it may be. Whenever I see someone who needs a helping hand, I'll go out of my way to help them out.
Now we have a school resource officer, and of course the DARE program there, that's certainly opened up. Would you be interested in something like that?
Absolutely. Anything I can get my hands on, get involved with, better the community, absolutely.
it's a small town, but we seem to be interlocked with a big city. And a lot of the big problems that are in our big city of Brockton come down here to haunt us there. How do you feel in getting involved in that kind of stuff?
No, I'm welcoming it. You know, I like any challenge that heads towards my direction, and I'll handle it the best that I can. So.
Okay, I have no other questions. Thank you.
Selectman Reese?
Can you think of a specific event in your life that significantly contributed to your career choice in law enforcement?
Growing up with a father who's currently a law enforcement officer, it's definitely been a big influence on my life. He's like a role model to me, and I always strive every day to be half the man that he is. You know, he was like the hero to me, so being here right now, it's like a dream come true for me having this opportunity, so.
Is there any question that we haven't asked that you wish we had asked, so you'd have an opportunity to tell us more about yourself, or?
Well, I mean, if you had asked me what I had done besides the physical training and all that, I also have, you know, firearms training, handcuffing techniques, anything that involves other stuff with law enforcement, I've absolutely gotten training in, so that would be it, but
Thank you.
no problem.
Is there anything else you'd like to add or any questions for us?
No,
Okay.
sir.
All set, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so, yep, Mr. Thom, you're more than welcome to stay.
I'm not sure if the other interview person stayed or not.
Okay.
You wanna wait a
We,
few minutes? I got somebody looking.
did you knock on the, okay, you know.
They're looking for me. Huh? Just take a quick look downstairs. We've searched and.
Okay, all right, we probably should have let her know beforehand, but that's okay. So Chief, do you have a recommendation for us?
I do. Tonight, I recommend to the board Ezequiel Sanchez. And I do this for a couple different reasons. Zeke, on the last appointment for full-time position, was number 3, and we selected the first 2 to full-time positions. Since then, I always like to look at people and see how they're going to react to a disappointment. Zeke came to me. He had to take the exam again. He scored in the top position of the present list. You have the top 3 candidates here tonight. He went on his own to participate in the police academy, CPR, 911 medical dispatcher. He works 16 hours a week. We've gotten to watch him for over a year, which I think is a good thing, because we got to know who he is and the character he has. And as you know, I want only highly individuals that have good character and our team players. So we got a long time to look at him, and I think that's important. He's volunteered a lot of times for the schools with the kids. I think he's a good fit in our department, so that's why I recommend him.
Thank you, Chief. Does any of the other board members have anything to add?
Nothing.
No, I don't think.
Okay, I mean, I was impressed by all the candidates. I think both candidates in front of us, Mr. Thom, Mr. Sanchez, did a great job. I am inclined to go with the chief's recommendation after he spent, as he said, a year with him and being able to evaluate him during his year as a special. At this time, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that I would go with the chief's recommendation, Sanchez.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Congratulations.
congratulations.
Dan, thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
See ya.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, good luck.
I can't reach that far. Thank you
Congratulations.
for coming in. I hope we see you again.
Thank you, sir. Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much.
Come see you. Thank you very much.
Tracy, does that close anymore, that blind? It's killing me. A little better. Thank you. Okay, back to the 7 PM hearing, Boston Trailer LLC. Is there someone? Tracy, do you want to go ahead first, and then we'll hear from him?
So Boston Trailer is an existing business. They're expanding to have Class 1 sales, their trailer sales, typically direct from the manufacturer to the customer, so there wouldn't be a large volume of storage on the premise. All of their paperwork is in order. I would say the only thing that, if you're inclined to approve it after hearing from Jared, is that it would be subject to final building and fire inspections.
Okay. Okay, and is there anything that you would like to add?
The only thing I'd like to add is, we do have the fire set up for July 22nd, I think it is. I did notify Lincoln, the chief inspector, that his title. Deputy inspector. So that's all set to go, and he did approve the plans for that, so.
Where exactly are you on Manley Street?
635, maybe?
Yeah, where is?
Right before the Brockton line on the right.
Okay, so almost to the post office.
Correct.
Is there anything else on the board?
How long have you been in business in West Bridgewater?
We're going on 6 years now.
No, good. You want to use this as part of expand?
Yeah, so we have a few locations. One of our facilities was in Medford, Mass. And we dismantled that location. So we have the dealer's license out of Medford. And since we moved our corporate office to West Bridgewater, we figured it'd be easier to do it
So
from
this
where
will
we are.
enhance your business more.
Correct. Yeah, there's no physical changes being made.
Right.
In the trailer industry, all the manufacturers ship direct to the customers, so nothing comes on site in West Bridgewater. There's no changes being made to the yard at all. It's just the fact that the deal's license itself.
Well, I'm glad you chose West Bridgewater.
Yeah, it's been great. I just moved
Yeah.
there.
Oh, you just moved here too?
I did, yeah.
Oh, that's even better.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak? No? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the license, subject to building and fire inspections.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, all set.
Good luck.
Sorry, David, do we need a motion to close the hearing?
We do.
Okay, is there a motion to close the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're right at 7:15. Up next, we have Lux Car Sales. Pursuant to Chapter 140 of Massachusetts General Laws, a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, July 11th, 2018, at 7:15 in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Town Hall, 65 North Main Street, West Bridgewater, Massachusetts, on the application for a Class II used car dealer's license for Lux Car Sales LLC to be located at 755 West Center Street, West Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Interested parties are invited to be present and to be heard. And this was posted Thursday, June 21st, 2018. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Tracy?
So this is a new business to West Bridgewater. This will be a Class 2. They would have a maximum of 13 vehicles on their premise. Their paperwork is also in order. They sought and received a special permit as well, so the license would have a condition that it's subject to the provisions of the Board of Appeals decision. And the only thing, again, on this one is just subject to final building and fire inspections.
So the location of this is what, up near the, what's the exact location of this?
755 West Center Street.
Okay.
So it's up near the life care, is that correct? Up near the life care? The life care?
Yep, it's adjacent to the La Odessa restaurant.
Okay, all right. Just want to know what location was.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to speak to? Okay, anything from the board? No? Okay, I have no concerns. Is there a motion to approve, subject to building and fire inspections?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second, I'd just like to say that when we give these, we like to keep the yards clean, you know, because sometimes they can, with these used cars, sometimes they can get junk, and the building inspector is right there. So if we can keep the yard clean, I know that's a great location, the cars, so good luck.
Okay.
I'll second a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there a motion to close the hearing?
So
I'm sorry, is there anyone from the public? I should have asked this beforehand. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak to this? No. Okay, is there a motion to close the hearing?
We'll just close the hearing.
All in favor? Aye.
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 You're all set. Okay, we will move down to warrants, Board of Selectmen business. We have memo of agreement between Town of West Bridgewater and West Bridgewater Police Association regarding school resource officer. David?
Yep. So, as you know, town meeting approved the funding for school resource officer. It's a newly created position within the department. As a result, the collective bargaining agreement had to be updated. So there is no other changes. All it is an acknowledgement of the position. The police chief is here if you'd like to speak to him about it. But at the end of the day, the union agreed to it. They have signed on, and I'm just asking the board to sign the addendum.
Okay. Chief, did you have anything to add, or?
No, the agreement that I got with the union, I think, is favorable to the town, because they get extra days, and I'm asking them, well, they're required to use them during school closing times, so that way it will help me not have to fill as many shifts as necessary. So I think it's a good agreement for the town.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Is there anything else on that, Eldon or Denise?
When is this going to affect? Is it,
I'm going to start the school resource officer with the help of the second. I have appointed, as you know, Kenny Thaxter, the school resource officer, and Officer Tim Pope as his backup. They will be starting August 1st, starting to do procedure and protocols for the school safety, so we can have a baseline by the start of school.
Okay.
Question from the floor, Chair.
Go ahead.
Has a memorandum of understanding been entered into and finalized between the school and the police department?
It has. It's been signed by the superintendent of schools, the chair of the school department, and myself.
And what meeting of the department, school department, was it discussed?
I have no idea what part of the schools it was discussed. It was just individually read and signed by those three people. We
Okay.
did not have a meeting on it.
Okay, so the chairman signed on his own without a vote of the board?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm not sure how that was done.
So as such, Mr. Chairman, what I would do is I would ask for the board to take a vote to approve the MOU as presented, and then as is customary, you sign all your documents during or after the meeting, whatever you prefer.
I'd like to make a motion to that effect.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll move down to accept for review meeting minutes for May 16th, June 4th, and June 6th. Is there a motion?
So you can use the word, you got to approve, accept.
Yep,
It is accept.
it is
correct,
accept, that's correct.
Okay, so the word is accept. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. We accept those minutes, May 16th, June 4th, June 6th, for our review.
Is there a second?
Just checking something. I thought we were, just give me 1 minute.
We'll approve them next meeting. This
Oh,
is only-
okay. Okay, that's second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We have a number of resignations from boards and committees. Kelly Hutchins, resignation from Local Advisory Board. Diane Perry, resignation from ADA Committee. Deborah Polcari, resignation from Field Driver. Fred Baker, resignation from Committee to Appoint Finance Committee. I'll entertain a motion to accept those resignations and send a letter of thanks to those 4 individuals.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, up next we have a special police officer appointment. Chief, do you want to speak about him at all?
As in the past, I've always asked the board, as the appointing authority, to appoint different specials. We do it annually, but if in between, if there's a individual I'd like, I always bring forward. This individual, Chris, who is presently, he's been a dispatcher for a year. In my program that I have, the individual has to go through the permanent intermittent reserve academy on their own. They have to do CPR, first responders, 911 training, EMD training, and then we sit back and we watch how they are. And they have to do 16 hours a week as a dispatcher. So there's a real benefit to us than just hiring specialists to just do road work. So this individual's been with us for a while. He's done everything that he's asked. We've now watched him for about 7 months, and he's done all these other academy requirements. So now I'd like to go to the next step, have the board appoint him as a special, and then we can review him, and hopefully in the future we'll be able to appoint him to a next step in the position.
Thank you, Chief. Is there a motion to appoint Christopher Hugh as special police officer?
I'll make a motion to appoint Christopher Hughes, Special Police
I'll
Officer.
second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ronald Randall has asked to carry over some vacation time. Do you know how many days it was, David?
Yes, 3.5 days.
Okay, I have no concerns with that.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Dog park, status update. David, Tracy?
Do you want to speak to it, or?
Sure. So we're kind of at a crossroads with the dog park project. As you're aware, the design phase went through a number of iterations using different engineers. And at this point, the site seems to be a problem. We could look to find another site in town where we could locate it, but then we may run into some funding issues because the engineering funds that were available to us through the Stanton Foundation have been exhausted. So really, this is just a request to get the board's wishes. It is a different board now than it was previously, and just to get your thoughts on whether or not you want the project to move forward, and whether or not you want us to investigate it further.
Have we spent anything so far on this?
We have not. Financially, we have not.
I mean, I would like to continue with it to some degree. I mean, I don't think it should be a major priority, but the town voted on it. Majority voted for it. I guess majority of the people want it. So I don't see the harm in, if it's not costing us anything, to pursue it as both of you see fit. I don't know if the...
I like to see it, there's quite a lot of people who are behind it. Location has been a problem all the way along here, but there's a lot of work that was put on this thing, and because we got a grant for it, they had to move it along. I'd like to see if we could pursue it and see if there's a possibility we can find another location and move it on.
Sure. So just so you understand moving forward, the funding constraint, the approval at town meeting was specific to the Stanton Foundation. So it was funds to match the Stanton Foundation grant. So anything that we're investigating moving forward that would be done outside of the grant could potentially come at a cost that we could talk about, obviously, in the future, once we get and kind of figure out what that would look like.
So right now, is it completely dead at that location entirely? Do you think there's any chance?
It's not dead entirely. I think the issue lies in getting another engineer to draw up a set of plans that's acceptable to the Stanton Foundation, where the engineering monies that the Stanton Foundation are willing to give to us have been exhausted. There would be a cost to that.
Could I ask you a
Yeah,
question?
go ahead.
How much did we receive in the engineering funds?
Did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so, excuse me, so there was probably between the two engineers, I want to say the first engineer, which was Larry Silva, was probably around $7,000, and the same for the second engineer. Both of those costs were incurred by the Stanton Foundation.
And I think Mallory dedicated the most time to this project?
No, that's why I said earlier that from a investment standpoint, financially, the town hasn't invested any money, but there's been a considerable amount of time that's been invested into it. And for whatever reason, the Stanton Foundation, although they initially said they were happy with the location, every time we bring forward to them with additional drawings, they continue to put another roadblock. So we don't really know as to whether or not it's site-specific or there's other issues. And our concern is that at this point, they have informed us they will not spend any more money on engineering. So we would have to use that $10,000 for engineering. And the risk that we run is that the Stanton Foundation may not like the next site. And obviously now it's on our bill. And so we're trying to make sure that if we are going to spend that money, look for another site, continue to invest the time and the energy into it, that is the wishes of the board, that this is a priority versus other priorities.
Okay. In that case, I think I'd prefer not to spend the money on the engineering. I mean, it sounds like it's intentional that they're not approving the site or the plan. I don't know if you want to have a frank conversation with them and just ask them point blank if we're ever going to get it, and if not, we'll just stop trying.
Yeah, I mean, we don't, it's frustrating because they've approved both engineering firms. In fact, the second one was a recommendation of a town that just used this engineering company, and so it was their recommendation. So we use them, and for whatever reason, again, they still are not approving it, and they have, unfortunately, they have a plethora of issues with that plan as well. So I agree with you. We're probably going to have a frank conversation with them, and then we'll see as to what they tell us.
Can you get the information, get back to us, and then we can look at it at another date there or our next meeting?
Okay.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
Okay. It's now 7:30. We'll move on to the next public hearing. Little Buck Incorporated, pursuant to Chapter 138 and Chapter 140 of Massachusetts General Laws, a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, July 11, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Town Hall, 65 North Main Street, West Bridgewater, Massachusetts, on the revocation of an all-alcohol on-premise liquor license and entertainment license held by Little Buck Incorporated, 320 West Center Street, West Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Interested parties are invited to be present and to be heard, and this was posted Thursday, June 21st, 2018. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
Move to open the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Tracy, would you like to start us out?
Sure. So this licensee, and I don't believe anybody's here from there. This licensee was before the board in January. They failed to renew at the end of last year as required in November. And the board did agree to allow them to have their license approved with the caveat that the communication would need to approve and that sort of thing. We have issued a violation subsequent to that because we were made aware of a prolonged closing. At that time, we asked that they communicate any closures to us in the Board of Health and the Building Department as well. They then subsequently closed for an extended period of time and have been closed for some time. We have taken every means, any means that we could to notify them about this hearing this evening, to give them an opportunity to come in and articulate the reasons for the closure. They're not here, so I'm recommending that the board revoke their license at this time.
Thank you, Tracy. Sergeant Warner, did you have anything to add?
No, everything she said is accurate. They were not following there. I went in for one inspection and basically closed them down because they weren't serving any food. The kitchen was not up and running. None of the employees that were in there could show that they were actual employees. There were so many violations that I just had them closed. And then after that, I was never able to get in touch with the named party on the license. And after that, it just continued to, I couldn't even get back into the place. It was just always closed.
And I'll add one point. The Board of Health has also revoked their food service permit as well.
Okay. Thank you. Anything for the board?
No, I mean, we gave them a lot of chances, and they haven't, right, they're not even here. And we can't keep a place vacant without, that's part of the PBC rules. So we have to take action.
Yep, I think they were lucky to get the license back in January. And they've proven themselves to be non-compliant operators, so I think it's time to revoke. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Denise?
I mean, other than we have a memo here that states the business was checked 32 times from June 1st through July 8th, and at no time was it open. I think that further enforces everything that's been said.
Okay.
And for all the other reasons we're given here, by Tracy.
Is there a motion to that effect?
Motion to revoke.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And just so the board is aware, we will obviously attempt to communicate the revocation to the license owner. They will have 5 days to appeal to the ABCC. Again, just so the board is aware of that.
5 days, is that what you said?
That is correct.
Okay, is there a motion to close the hearing?
Move to close the hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And up next, we'll skip down to ADA compliance. Denise, you had asked for this to be on the agenda?
I did. I attended a Board of Assessors meeting a few weeks ago during which a resident requested an accommodation because someone may be disabled. The accommodation was denied by the chairman. I don't think the accommodation that was requested was unreasonable. I respect the chairman's authority. However, I requested a legal opinion on the matter as well. And in recognition of the costs we might incur for the legal research, I requested the short answer. And in summary, without reading the entire letter, there were 2 questions I asked, and one was regarding the events that I saw. And our town council's opinion is, or statement is, my initial reaction is that this is not a violation of either the state or federal law concerning a requirement to accommodate someone with an alleged disability. However, he then further stated, I would agree that it is not a good practice and in the future reasonable accommodations for anyone in the audience, whether with a disability or not, be able to hear what is going on is appropriate. In consideration of what was mentioned, I am asking that the selectmen send a letter to all department heads, boards, and commissions, asking that they make reasonable accommodations when they can, carefully consider what a reasonable accommodation is, and if they are unable to define if the accommodation is reasonable within the scope of the ADA laws, then they err on the side of being proactive and make the reasonable accommodation. Furthermore, immediately thereafter, I think we should recommend that the department head or chairperson consult with our ADA committee to determine what accommodations, if any, they should make going forward, under what circumstances, and the proper procedure and process required to implement a reasonable accommodation. There is a second part of this letter that answers my second question, and it's regarding videotaping and audio taping conversations of residents or people in the hallways of Town Hall. I'd like to defer that to our next meeting and ask that we discuss that ask that it be put on the agenda and we discuss it then, but in particular,
Okay.
the first issue.
Sorry. So the first issue with the ADA, you're asking for a letter. I have no issue with that. I mean, I don't typically like to overstep on other boards, especially elected boards. But there's no harm in sending a letter reminding them. And was there a second part to the request?
There is a second, well,
Did you say a committee, or?
well, I think that if the department head or the chairman is unfamiliar with the ADA laws or isn't sure whether they need to do anything, they may not want to necessarily make the decision on their own. I would prefer I think they should at least err on the side of caution. If someone can't hear, to ask what a reasonable accommodation is so that person can't hear, such as turning off this air conditioner while we all sit here and stifle so we can hear, we sacrifice that. But if they're not sure what they should do, then they can consult with our ADA committee, and they have more expertise and knowledge in this area, and they can advise them.
Okay. Eldon, did you have?
Oh, we have an ADA committee. Was any of this ever reported to the AD committee there? And because that's what the committee is out there for, to investigate. And like I talked a little bit with a person who's getting an awful lot of things because she's blind. And there's all kinds of things for people that can't hear out there. And if there is something that the person can do himself, there are sometimes it's just a change of where the person is positioned in the meeting. I mean, there's all kinds of accommodations here. You just have to work with them on. I know what you're saying, but we do have AD committees to look into these things. And I would just like to go through the protocol, go through why do we have these committees out there? And that's for these purposes.
So to answer your question, I did contact a member of the ADA committee, and I also called Boston, because what I watched is such a gray area, that the person's comment was there may be someone disabled in the room. She specifically said, so they could hear, and there may be someone disabled in the room. To me, to ask someone to turn around so others could hear them seemed reasonable, but that's why I consulted with others in the area of expertise, and also to get a legal opinion. I was uncomfortable with the situation. I wanted a legal opinion. I reached out to those I thought could help. And again, I go back to reading David Gay's letter. The fact is, in his opinion, without doing thousands of dollars of research, he does not think it is a violation of the law, but you go back to what would the reasonable person do? If you can't hear what's being said, then to ask someone to turn around, I'm not going to make a legal decision, but in my mind, that sounds a reasonable accommodation, whether you're disabled or not.
Are we talking about the same board that had a problem with the back was turned? Is that the same board, an elected board?
It's the Board of Assessors, but again, I go back to the fact that I think all boards need to be conscientious of if they have someone disabled in the room, or if someone can't hear me, or hear anyone. If they're in a public meeting, they should be able to hear what is being said.
On the first one, I called the chairman of that board, and I said, why cause a problem there? Just ask the person to turn around, you know, and that was done. Did you consult with the Board of Assessors on this too?
This was a subsequent meeting.
Yeah, okay.
That it happened again with a guest speaker at that meeting, where his back was turned to the audience. The resident asked if the guest could turn around so she could hear him, and the chairman said no.
No, that's kind of, to me, a reasonable accommodation.
So I'm completely fine with sending out a letter reminding them to be aware of ADA compliance. But we just had 3 candidates sit right there facing us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because we're the ones who are making the decision.
Mm-hmm.
I think everyone should be able to hear, and we should make it as accommodating as possible. But at the end of the day, the board is the one who needs to hear it most. We shouldn't intentionally, by any means, make it so people can't hear. But the board is the ones who are using that information to make the decisions. So I think telling people that they can't have, or telling other boards that they can't have people sitting with their back to the audience might be a little hypocritical.
I'm not implying that. They can sit wherever they want until someone in the audience says,
Okay.
there may be someone with a disability, or I can't hear you. Then if they, they've made the effort to come to the meeting, if we can accommodate.
We should all be accommodating. Mr. Race?
Yeah, when you go to the Board of Assessors meetings, they don't let you ask questions. They totally ignore you. They won't let you say a word. And if you do, they call the police on you.
Yeah, no,
And also, it's quite ignorant when somebody's got their back towards you during a meeting.
No,
These guys spoke clearly. I could hear them all.
I agree with that, but sometimes it's the way it has to be set up. And we don't have the space for everyone to be visible at all times, but we try to be as accommodating as possible.
Oh, yeah.
And I encourage all the other boards to be as well.
They don't, though.
Okay, so is there a motion to the effect of sending out the letter?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And your second request was an agenda item. David, could you put that on the agenda for next meeting?
Will do.
A few more minutes before 7:45. Discuss annual employee appreciation cookout date. So originally, we had it on the calendar for August 10th. We like to have David there. David can't make it that day. He asked if we could move it to August 17th. I know you had requested the August 15th meeting to be moved, so I'm guessing that might not work for you.
No, it won't.
And Anthony, the Council on Aging isn't available on the 17th.
Oh, okay.
They're available on the 10th and on the 24th.
I'm away the 24th.
Am I the only one available? Unbelievable.
Could we, just to ask Anthony, I didn't mean to interrupt, could we maybe send Tracy and David a list of dates that were available?
Yeah, even if we move into September, there's no issue with that. That way it's not as hot out and more people are probably around. So 3 of us.
So we'll come up with a date.
We'll give Tracy some dates some Fridays that we're available.
Table it till then.
That we can go through our calendars.
A few would be great, just in case the Council on Aging has any conflicts.
And you want us to look at Fridays?
I think that probably works out.
Yeah, Friday, we do Fridays because Town Hall closes at noon.
Okay.
So right after that, we do it.
So you'd want us available at noon?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. And it's now 7:45. We'll go to the next hearing. Nara Hookah Lounge, pursuant to Chapter 138 and 140 of Massachusetts General Laws, a public hearing will be held on Wednesday, July 11th, 2018, at 7:45 p.m. in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, Town Hall, 65 North Main Street, West Bridgewater, Massachusetts, on the application for a Sunday entertainment license, a change of license category from wine malt wine and malt with cordials on-premise liquor license to an all-alcohol on-premise liquor license. In an in an alteration of premises for Marogeo Incorporated, doing business as Nara Hookah Lounge, 1 South Main Street, West Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Interested parties are invited to be present and to be heard. This was posted Tuesday, June 26, 2018. Is there a motion to open the hearing?
Move to open the hearing.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Tracy, so we have 3 requests in front of us. Do you want to, I don't know, would you prefer to start with, do one at a time, or do?
Synopsis, and then, so 2 components of the application, I think probably are best considered together. That's the alteration of premise and the change of category of license from beer and wine with cordials to all alcohol. And then the second component of the application is for a Sunday entertainment license, which can be looked at discreetly. They have an entertainment license now, they're just looking to expand it to Sundays. And you want to give a little background on why you're applying at this point?
Hi. We have it for every day of the week, but we wanted the entertainment license for the Sunday. Like sometimes people, they ask if they can do their birthday party. We're not allowed to have a DJ on, so that's why we're asking for it.
So would you be doing entertainment every Sunday or just for special events?
Once in a while.
Okay, so I don't know if, I guess we'll do that license first and then take the other 2 together. So we'll start with the entertainment. So do the board members have anything to add on the entertainment aspect of the license?
I'd just like to ask, how many days a week are you open again, currently?
Well, currently we're open 6, but the license for 7.
You have a license now for 7?
7 days, yeah.
Okay. And when you mentioned entertainment, you mentioned a birthday party. So are you referring to sort of having folks come in and having an event there, or are you going to be providing entertainment?
We provide the entertainment.
Okay. And what type of entertainment is that?
Could be a DJ, could be a musician, you know.
And what hours would you be operating on Sunday?
Well, we open Sunday from 6 to 12. So then if we do a party like a musician or a DJ, don't start like 8:30. But we want it like from 6 to 12, but we're not gonna do it at 6 o'clock, you know.
Right.
We don't wanna be just strict with a certain time.
Okay. 6 o'clock to midnight?
Yeah.
Okay. What day are you closed? Just wondering,
Right
Monday?
now we close Tuesday.
Tuesday?
So,
Okay.
we may change it when we open the cigar lounge. When we open, go back to 7 days.
Okay. Eldon, do you have anything on the entertainment?
No, I don't.
Okay, is there, or did the police department have anything on the entertainment aspect?
We don't have any proposing, we want an entertainment license, haven't had any problems with this entertainment license.
Okay, is there anyone from the public? Go ahead.
I do. And I had spoke to George once before. Darlene Green, I own a house down on Shadbach Road, because there was complaints regarding music loud at night. I just want to ensure that he's been really good. It seems to have stopped since we had a discussion, but I just want to make sure that that isn't going to start up again once he gets an all alcohol license.
Now we actually hired the crowd control staff, so we don't have to worry.
Not so much, I don't care about the crowd control. I mean, you're over there. My thing is the noise.
No, it'll be quiet.
Well, it's great to hear that you guys worked it out together.
yeah, nice day.
That's good to hear. Is there anyone else from the public who had anything to add? Okay.
Just a point of, we had only one noise complaint logged for the hookah lounge, and that's all we had.
Okay.
Yeah, we try to settle things without having to call the people.
That's good.
I did have a resident contact me regarding noise, and I referred her to Mike White to start there.
Okay. All right. I have no issue with extending the entertainment license. Is there a motion?
I move to grant.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. And next we have the switch in license and it's really an expansion.
Alteration of premise.
Alteration. Okay. Did you first want to start off by speaking to the board, explaining what you do, what you're looking for?
Well, as you know, it was 3 unit. We took the middle, they divided the wall down. We extended it, we renovated everything. We have the furniture ready. We have the smoke ventilation ready. We adding cigar. We have one section for the cigar, and the rest is gonna be, for the hookah and food. We're almost done. The building inspector is gonna go tomorrow, just take a quick look, see if everything is up to code before he does go do the final inspection. I tried last week, but he was never available. I came here like 4 times.
In the police department, Chris, could you start with the smoking? That's cigar. Is that, do you have any issues or concerns with that aspect of it?
The expanding of the tobacco use in there, we don't have any stance on that.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to the liquor. Sorry, go ahead.
Going back to the expansion that he's doing, are we looking to increase the number of tables and chairs that are there by doing this expansion?
I'd assume so.
Yeah, that's the whole idea behind it, is to add more chairs and tables. We're going from 45 to 99.
No, at this point, I'm gonna ask that George see the Board of Health before going any further.
Huh? For what?
For seating, how many seats you can have.
Rob knows. You know, he's been to my place. I have all the license.
I know you have the
permit.
licenses, I gave you your licenses.
Rob knows, he was there last week.
But when I look at the plans, the plans ain't saying, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a health agent, just don't want you to go spend all kinds of money.
No, he knows, he was there last week.
Okay.
And he told me, just call me when you finish, I'll come in and do the final inspection.
Tracy or Chris, have you had any conversations with the health agent on this?
I made him aware about the public hearing this evening, but I was just gonna say, depending on how the board acts this evening, in the event that you were to approve it, I was going to say it would be subject to Board of Health, fire, and building inspections and.
Yeah, he told me that last week when he came to do the inspection of the food. He said, when you're done, just give me a call.
Okay.
He has double the size of the interior.
Yeah.
Interior has been doubled, bought the whole building.
Okay. Do you intend to do anything with food? I know you have a limited light menu now. Do you intend to increase that at all?
Oh yeah, we already added a few other items. We're gonna do like increase with light food, not actual cooking. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna put more food on the table. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll move more into the liquor aspect of it. I guess we can start with the police department, if the police department would like to speak to that. I don't know if Chris or Chief.
I'm gonna let Chris start off with the, how this is going on.
Yeah, the police department's been against liquor license there from the very first beer and wine. They're strongly against a full liquor license at that premise. It's not a restaurant, it's by name a lounge, and we don't want to go back to the days of having just bar rooms. It's not a restaurant, it doesn't have a full kitchen. It becomes the issue of smoking indoors. How much liquor can he sell, how much food can he sell before it outweighs the tobacco? It has to remain at 51% more tobacco, but there's nobody that does any kind of checks and balances for that. Had numerous violations in the past with the liquor license that's there, and there's also an issue with the license that he has now, not following my guidelines.
Chief, did you have anything else to add to?
Well, I just want to give a little bit of history here. In late December 2016, as you know, the cordial license was issued to George in business. And it's very new to everybody because cordial licenses basically were given only in the northern part of Boston as after dinner drinks. And we learned after doing the liquor agent, Sergeant Warner, doing inspections, that he was selling items that are not authorized. The issue that I have, whether there's a dispute on what's authorized or not, is Chris did extensive research, talked to the legal department at ABCC, gave all this information to the ownership. And this was, like I said, in January of 2017. We didn't follow up with him. We told him the guidelines, and it's his responsibility as a license holder to make sure that he is authorized to sell the items that he has in the liquor. The following year, we did Sergeant Warner did this yearly follow-up, and nothing had changed. Similar items were on for sale. And my issue is, if the liquor agent says that it's not authorized, it should be removed, and then it's on the owner to then come to us and prove that we're incorrect. He's never taken anything off the shelf. We're using small little areas of the law. I did go down there today, and it's his belief that if the liquor distributor sells it to him, it's legal to sell, and that's not the case. I think that we need, like I said, he needs, anything that we say is not legal, it's up to the business owner then to come forward and prove to us that it is. And he's never taken that time to do that. Nothing's changed, or very little has changed.
Denise, were you gonna say something?
Question from the floor, Mr. Chairman?
Give me 1 second. Denise,
Thank you.
Were you gonna?
I was stepping back a little bit, and I'm new at this, so if I'm asking a question that's out of order, feel free to tell me. You're expanding from 45 to 99. Do you have sufficient parking, or is that subject to?
Yeah, that has already been in front of the board. The
It
planning
has?
board.
So
They passed it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Dupuis, go ahead.
West Bridgewater has a fairly in-depth alcohol policy. I remember going, in front of this board and discussing it as well. The first step is a letter to the license holder. Was a letter sent under that policy to the license holder in regard to the violations that they just discussed?
The letter was sent in January 2018, is that correct?
Or prior
I think it was December 27th.
Okay, around that time.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I want to say something. In January 10th, 2018, we had a hearing in here, and Tracy, she mentioned it, the violation. And we said, like, we called the ABCC, and we have the name of the lady, and what time, and whatever, and what date. And we also have the chairman, Anthony, he said it out loud, this violation, it should never been issued at the first place. So if you want to go back to that video.
I remember that. Those weren't my exact words. I said if we made a mistake, I
If you
apologize.
want to go back to YouTube and watch it.
So what happened was, we looked into the law. We should have included Chris. We didn't. We made that mistake. So there was miscommunication on our part. We never told Chris that we had different guidance from the ABCC, which we did have. We were told by the ABCC that if it contained 2.5% sugar, it was considered a cordial. We were told that. I've seen from Chris what he was told, and he was told something different.
So something wrong is going on.
Actually, I was told over 2%. Last time I talked to a lady, I forgot her name.
Just to make this perfectly clear, when we found out what he was selling, we didn't go in there and violate him. Chris went in there and did everything possible to educate. We left a year to educate. We have the
an extreme amount of research into this, and when we contacted ABCC, we talked to the legal department. So I guess I would say the legal department, ABCC, would oversee whatever the board might have got information from. I'm not saying that they're right or they're right. But my whole point here is that he was notified of this and given instructions on how to do this. And nothing has ever changed. And that's what I think is the issue. This is going back. We didn't just violate it in 2016 December. We gave them all the information, and we didn't then waited a full year.
Actually, this was in last year, December of 2017. It was never in 2016. When the sergeant did my inspection, I have the letter.
So there was, I believe, from 2016.
Right after I get the letter from this department.
No, 2016, a full year prior, I read a report from Sergeant Warner that stated it referenced moonshine. I know that then other liquors.
Yeah, we took it off. That was taken off here.
But I believe he also referenced other liquors, correct?
That's correct. And that moonshine was discovered because of a liquor law violation of over-serving. Then when I went in, at that time, I was when I discovered all the jar of moonshine, all the vodkas and whatnot. That was in late 2016. I was educated. I went back. He told me what the ABCC had allegedly told him. But he's never been able to provide me anything in writing. I went back. I contacted an investigator with the ABCC. He gave me the same information I got from the legal department of the ABCC, which I then contacted. I have all of their back and forths with me in writing, saying specifically that there was a list that was put out. You can petition the ABCC to have something added to the list, however, nobody has ever done that. The list was put out because the ABCC tested everything that was on the list to make sure of the sugar content. You can't take Pinnacle vodka that's flavored and assume that it has 2.5% sugar. Nowhere on the bottle does it say that. Most vodkas are flavored chemically, they're not flavored by sugar and juice. And that's the reason why ABCC has a list, a specific list that you have to follow for the cordials. He was given all that information. At one point, he even told me that he spoke to the same investigator that I gave him the information to. That investigator told him something different. After he told me that, I then contacted that same investigator who said, I've never spoken to anybody from Nara Hookah Lounge. Then this time, a few days ago when I went in there, he stated that he had spoken to somebody else and he had spoken to his distributors, and the distributors make the list. When I spoke to all the distributors do not make the list. However, their computer system will not differentiate between cordials license and beer and wine and all alcohol license, because cordial licenses are so rare. There's only a handful of them, and it's in Boston. And so the distributors just don't have it set up in the computer system, and the salesman will sell them anything. So the ABCC said the onus falls on the business owner to determine what is legal and what is not legal. I have educated him on what is legal and what is not legal. He continues to go over my head and get whatever answer he wants. Until he gets an answer until he gets what he wants to get.
Okay, final comments, George?
I did do my job. I called the ABCC. I spoke to the lady. I gave you her name, her number, and the date and the time. She told me anything over 2% I'm allowed to buy and sell and serve. I told her who decide what should I buy. She said the distributor. The distributor does have the list. That's right, he puts it on computer. If the computer allows it under cordial, they're gonna sell it to me. Everything I carry has way over 2.5%. It does not say on the bottle 2.5%, nor does it say on the beer what's to have, or vodka or anything, how many percent sugar or whatever is in it. Everything we sell has been discussed. I came to this town, I met with Dave, I wrote a letter to him, I gave him the latest information. If this town, if this board sent me a letter, George, do not sell it, I would never sold it. But I never even received a letter. Because why? Because it is allowed for me to buy it. Now the ABCC tell him something, I call, they tell him something else. Now this is, I don't know, cash 22, cash 88. He called, he get different answer. I called, I get the answer I'd love to hear. But I did provide the name of the lady. And the legal place he called, I don't think they really involved in telling people what to buy. They're only involved with legal issues, not with what kind of alcohol you can. The lady I spoke to, Priesco, that's who tells you what you can buy, what you cannot buy. She has the knowledge. And the sergeant gave me the number he talked to. I called that guy, he never, huh? No, not Kai, Kai was the first one. He never answered me. That's when I asked somebody who knows about cordial licenses. When I spoke to her, exactly. To anything over 2% you're allowed. Who allowed me? Said, call your distributor, they know what to sell you. And I never received a letter from this board warning me, do not sell it. I would have taken it off. We're not $1.5 million in the business to lose over selling flavored vodka. I lose my shirt. I would have taken it off 8 months ago. And this has been going on since 8 months ago, not 2 years ago. The first time he came in, I took everything he told me. Then I take it, Sergeant?
No, sir.
Then I take the vodka down?
Straight vodka that you
Yeah.
put down, not with the flavored or anything else that I told you that you couldn't sell.
Well, no, the first one there was no flavored vodka. I was only telling straight, we were mixing it.
Yes, and you did stop mixing. That
Yeah.
was the first thing.
That
The first
one-
year he had his license, he was mixing drinks. So
That-
that had to end. Did finally end that.
No, finally, I right away, as soon as you know.
You argued that with the ABCC as well. And
No, I didn't. What, to sell straight liquor?
I think I symbolized the whole thing. He's told by the liquor agent by the town that it's not authorized, it should be removed. It's up to the liquor holder to now come to us. I don't think he has an idea of what he's selling and what's legal and not legal. Whether he's just being ignorant to it, or he just thinks that this is the case, I don't know. But when you're told it can't be sold, it has to be removed, and then prove to the liquor agent that it's illegal. And none of that's going to happen.
Excuse me. I'm not ignorant. I did my homework. I called everybody. The ABCC 28 times. I called the Pinnacle Direct. I called the Ciroc Direct. I called even Rams Direct because there's some, I don't sell Rams. I'm not ignorant at all. I know what I was doing and did it by the book. I came here. I was never sent another letter. George, dump your flavored liquor. If I was, I would have dumped it. I was never dumped. Even the sergeant, he never told me to take it off. He said you can't sell it.
I'd say that's the same thing.
So,
But you are correct, we didn't, in that instance, I think Chris was being nice and,
Yeah, he was.
and verbally telling you, instead, in that case, we didn't issue a letter. We didn't issue a letter until a year later. Mr. Dupuis?
Comment from the floor. What it sounds like to me is there's just been lack of communication back and forth and a lack of adherence to the written policy that the town went through and adopted. If that had been followed, I don't think any of this conversation would be going on right now. So here's my suggestion. This is not about revoking the cordial license, which appears to be a very confusing situation for all parties involved, including Sergeant Warner and George. There seems to be a big discrepancy here. We're here to vote on an all-alcohol license. There will be no more questions on which is which can I sell, which can I not. It'll be pretty darn clear. So all this back and forth, water under the bridge.
So that's correct, that it wouldn't be an issue anymore, but when voting on these, we have to consider violations in compliance with the police department.
And the violation
That's what we
wasn't
look at
actually
when
violated until
voting on these.
2017.
No,
End of 2017.
No, there's been 4 violations overall.
Written
Written.
and supplied to him. Written.
No.
Trace, I don't think that all 4 were written. Trace, do you know how many have actually been written?
From the board, there was 1 written violation, but I know you had other
in the
violations.
police department, I've sent over multiple violations. He was given copies of those violations. There's 2 over serving. There was 1 serving after hours.
Serving after hours, when?
When you first got your license in Sergeant Reed.
No, not after hours.
Okay, I have a report right here.
Let me
George,
see
I'm
it.
not gonna argue with you.
No,
You
no,
know what you
I
did.
can
You had
see
a
it.
party, a family party inside the place at 2 o'clock in the morning.
There was no liquor.
Just to answer, he was given those in
Right.
time.
Just
And we
trying to get the
tried
facts.
very, very hard to counsel and give we're not here to put any business out, any place out of business. We're looking at, is it fair to now give somebody an all-alcohol license when they haven't complied with the prior one? This is not, that's where we're at right now.
Yeah, but Chief, I never get a letter telling me take your flavored vodka off the shelf.
Sergeant Warner has given you multiple letters.
No, he didn't.
Okay, well, That's.
Sergeant, you have a letter saying remove your.
How many times
paper
have I
ticket.
come in and told you specifically?
Huh?
How many times have I come in and told you specifically?
And supplied him with our reports. Chris.
Specifically,
I think we
called the
discussed
ABCC
it.
and I don't know.
Regardless of the cordials license, the police department is against a full liquor license there at that location anyway, based on the fact that it is not a restaurant. It is, basically, it's a bar.
It's not a bar.
It's not a restaurant, so
It's not a bar
it's a
either.
lounge.
We have a full kitchen. I can sell you steak if you want. I can go make you steak right now. We decide not to have a big menu, but does not, the fact doesn't say we don't have food. We do have food, we do have full kitchen.
That's our recommendation, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Jerry, did you start to raise your hand?
I just want to say, I know when we gave the cordial license, excuse me, Jerry Lawrence, former selectman, when we gave the cordial license, we didn't even know what we were doing as a board. Mallory was here at the time. Basically, we thought a cordial license was anything mixed with sugar. It was all up in the air. I think we're probably the only town in the state other than the city of Boston that gives them. It was kind of a loophole to allow business to expand. I've been to the business a number of times. I myself was dead set against it when they first came to town. Why? Because it was something different. It wasn't the white Christian thing that our town's so noted for. It was something different. It was outside the box, and we're afraid of it. They open. It's a wonderful establishment. It's embraced. It's doing really well. They've invested a lot of money. They own their building now. I'd like to see them be able to continue to expand. I live right down the street from there. I'm ashamed to say that when they first opened, I tried to stop it myself because it was something I didn't embrace or understand. It wasn't part of my culture or my belief. I'm kind of embarrassed that I had that view. Being a gay man that lives in this small town that's been discriminated against, I understand and feel how they probably feel today and how they felt in the past. They run an awesome business, and we sat here and fought against belly dancing there. It's absolutely incredible if you go watch the artist do her performance. I think at the time we had Forey Broman here that spoke up and said, "You people don't get it. This isn't dirty. This isn't sexual. This is culture. And this is something we should embrace." And I think, you know, people that say it doesn't belong in our downtown, it does belong in our downtown. And it tells people that our community is not narrow-minded and small-minded, that we embrace this type of diversity, and they're doing a great job, in my opinion.
Thank you, Jerry. Is there anything else from the board? Alden, Denise, did you have anything else to add?
I just want to make sure I was hearing something clearly, and that is that there were occasions on which you, Officer Warner, didn't put something in writing, but had a conversation, Mr. Karam, correct? Okay, Mr. Karam, he had a conversation with you, and you agreed with what he said. But at other times, because he didn't put it in writing, you didn't do what he asked. Is that correct?
The verbal conversation when we were selling straight liquor, when we first got the license, he told me you can't sell it. I took it off right away. When he came in, I'm pretty sure he came in to do the annual inspection last year, December, I think. He said, "What is this?" I told him what it is. He said, then he told me you cannot sell it. I got a letter from the town. I did call the ABCC. I did all my homework. I spoke with Dave. I spoke with Tracy. We came to the meeting. If anybody told me, "George, what are you doing is not legal," I would have dumped it.
Okay, but, so just so I understand, he told you there, "George, what are you doing?" Then you called the...
Yeah.
Then
He
you-
saad, "I don't think you can sell that." Then I called the ABCC.
And they told you differently?
Yeah.
Do you
Even
have...
yesterday told me that. He said, they tell him different. When I called, trust me, it's a different story.
Yeah, clearly it is.
It is. If they
seems-
told me, I would have thrown it away.
Right? So...
Look, sometimes my voice goes up crazy, but I don't break the law. If they told me, "No, you can't," I would have taken it off.
Well...
I would have figured something else.
I think I kind of get the hint when a police officer says to me, "What are you doing?" It's sort of a nice way of saying, "Don't do that."
Well, but when the ABCC, the one who does the law, they tell you you can't do it.
Okay.
Okay, I can do it.
You know, generally when we go about these, I've been in a lot of these hearings, okay, we usually, like we have an agent now, and usually we listen to the agent. But I also have a list of the cordials here, And my end of the board, both my administrator and Tracy, and I'm confused about what the ABC really means.
Honestly, nobody knows. If you talk to the
Well,
ABC off
that's
record,
what,
they don't know.
yeah, but if they don't know, who knows?
And I have a court, I have a list
You
right from
know,
the distributor.
that's what I'm confused about.
And why should he be
Okay,
punished because of it?
My distributor has 40 paid of court, and the ABC told me, go to your distributor, and I went.
Yeah.
Or let's say, if somebody told me even after I get the letter, George, it's not, you're not allowed, I would have dumped it. I would have dumped it. Because especially we're applying for a full liquor.
George, I think you've been a great operator in this town. I mean, there's been this issue. Other than that, I think that you've been great, and I think that it's been great to have you here. In fairness to you, you got mixed information this past January. Sergeant Warner told you one thing. We insinuated at our selectmen's meeting that the law meant something else. I understand that the past 6 months. However, there was that full year period when Sergeant Warner went in a year ago, December 2016.
No, sorry, it was not a year, it was last year, last December.
No, there was the other incident,
Yeah,
December.
I took them off,
and
that is gone, that
there
is
was-
off the record. That, he told me take them off, I took them off, that is gone. 2016 is in the past. We're talking now December of 2017, last inspection he did to me. That has to be taken off, it's gone. He told me, and I did. He said, you can, and I did. Did I, Sergeant?
You're still selling the stuff in 2016, I instructed.
I was
you
not
to-
selling that. In 2016, I was not selling flavored vodka because I was buying it pure vodka and mixing it myself. I just started selling it, 9 months ago?
Okay. Is there anything further from anyone? So we can take the licenses one at a time. I guess there's 2 licenses on the table. First, the alteration of premise.
Actually, if I can interrupt you.
Do you want them together?
Yeah, because the application that will be submitted to the ABCC is a multiple amendment application, so they kind of have to be paired.
Yeah, they approve the alteration of premise as well. They do not approve the entertainment license. That's why we
That's
had.
why-
Okay, but we could still approve one without the other, correct?
The application will be sent to the ABCC in its entirety.
Okay, all right. Okay, so right now we have the option of approving the alteration of premise and the all liquor license. We have the option of denying it. There's always the option of tabling it for later discussion. My personal opinion is I think besides this, George and his wife have done a great job in town. I mean, I don't know. I hate to go against the police department's recommendation, I really do, but I mean, I personally have no issue with extending the license.
I'm in the same thing, you know. Generally, you know, when a police chief makes a report, I'll tell him to usually go along that, but I do have, there's so many variables here. And, you know, we're sitting in a position, and I know that I myself have not had any complaints from anybody. And I'm pretty vocal around town, and I don't hide from nobody. And usually people come up to me if they're against something. They let me know. They let me know. I mean, they're not afraid of me. I mean, I'll make a motion to grant the license.
Is there a second?
No. I would like to say something.
Oh, of course.
And the reason I'm not in favor of it is because, number one, there's clearly confusion over this ABCC ruling. George states his confusion, and Officer Warner states that he got information directly from them as well. And with that standing, it would seem to me, before I would go and do something that might risk my license, I'd go back to the officer and say, listen, this is too valuable to me to risk it. on top of what you found today. Let me finish, please. Is there anything else that I should or shouldn't be doing? Because I want to grow and I want to prosper in this town. And it bothers me to hear that each time something was brought up, there was a way to change the situation to try and see if that works. And that disturbs me, because we just don't have the resources to send our officers out to check bottles of liquor to see if we are or aren't in an area where it's legal or not legal, when the advice we're getting from the professionals is conflicting according to what you're saying. And the law is so unclear on it.
Yeah, but I did what you said. I got the letter from the city hall and I came right away. I did my job.
Well, I did my research too, and again, it's a little unclear, where it says that the liquor has to have more than 2.5% sugar in order to qualify.
And everything we have has more than 2.5. I have the paperwork.
So,
I showed them the chief.
So again, it requires someone to constantly be testing. This whole cordial thing, in my point of view, was us really getting into some murky water. I almost, you have the license, it is what it is, but awfully tough for someone to administer.
This should probably be the last one that's issued.
I have a question about that after officer. Go ahead, can I make one last point? Mr. Dupuis was correct when we initially did the license, that we were not all educated. He's absolutely correct. But at that time, we did educate ourselves, went to a few classes, sat down with legal and ABCC. Now, knowing it, we sat down with the ownership, okay? So at that point, we didn't do anything. We didn't send any violations, we didn't do anything. So yes, when it first came out, you're absolutely right. We educated ourselves. My problem is, since that education in late 2016, early 17, nothing has changed. That's my problem with it. And I think that's the issue the board should take. I think we need responsible people to make sure that they are doing what's the letter of the law, and if they're not sure, I would put it aside.
Well, I'm having a problem with the ABC, because they tell you one thing, and they tell, when we looked it up, they tell us another thing. And if they're not clear, I mean, you know.
Well, all I can say other than
How can you vote?
All I can say other than is that we got it from the legal department of the ABCC. I'm not sure where Tracy spoke to or who she spoke to. We went right to the legal. So that's the issue. I mean, I just want to make sure that we just don't close our eyes to a violation. And if there was an issue, it should have been put aside and we should have looked into it. We never did that. That's my issue with this whole thing. I'm not saying he's not running a nice business, you know, inside. He just closed his eyes to the liquor law violations, and that's my issue. Everything else, I have no issue with the noise complaints, nothing. That's not responsible to me.
Just one more thing, Chief. If I closed my eyes, I would never come right away. As soon as I got there in the mail, I spoke to Dave. I did what I'm supposed to do. My eyes are open. Dave knows I came right away.
The conversation is, she's talking about is 2018.
Correct. There was the full year between then.
Dave, I had to put you on the spot. Do you have any comments on this?
You're not putting me on the spot. It's just it's an unfortunate situation. It seems pretty clear to me that that the police informed Mr. Karam that he need to comply in the calendar year of 2017. I'm not in that building. I've gone there one time. Mm-hmm. You know, and the police department tells me that he wasn't in compliance during that period of time. Mr. Karam has a different definition of compliance. Mm-hmm. I think that Selectman Reyes is accurate, that if there is any confusion, that you would want to err on the side of what the police tell you. Now, it only came to my attention because in late December, when a formal letter was requested by this board, which we did send, informing Mr. Karam that he was not in compliance, Mr. Karam then provided us a letter rebutting our position, informing us that he had spoken to ABCC, and that ABCC informed him that he was in compliance. Now, you're the licensing authority. So at that point, because it is Tracy's job to make a recommendation to you as your licensing person in the office, is that she emailed somebody at ABCC, also had a conversation, and that information was inconsistent with what was being provided to the police department. You did not approve George's liquor license at that point. So the fault really is that we should have then communicated with the police department so we could compare notes, which we didn't do, because at that point, we just assumed that they were compliant, not recognizing that this issue would come up again. Mr. Dupuis is accurate as well, that if you were to just issue an all alcohol license, this issue just goes away, right? Because the issue is whether or not he's serving the correct alcohol or not. But I'm obviously uncomfortable if the police department has invested this amount of time and energy into it, and then we're not following it. Again, it's an unfortunate situation all around. And so my recommendation, you have a motion on the floor. You have to take a vote on that motion. If that motion passes, then obviously the license is granted. If that motion does not pass, then my recommendation is that you would continue the hearing until the next meeting. And at that point, what we would do is that I think that the police department, along with my office, would confer with ABCC so we could determine as to whether or not there was a violation. If there was a violation, then you have to make a decision knowing that there was a violation, whether or not you want to issue the license. But balancing that against the fact that Mr. Karam firmly believes he is not being compliant. As you see, he's not arguing that he wasn't attempting to comply. He's arguing that he thought he was in compliance. I think that that's a distinction we have to make. If we find out that ABCC says that he was in compliance all along, then that becomes an easy vote at the next hearing. So my only recommendation is you have a motion on the floor, act on that motion. If it carries through, we don't have to worry about this going forward for obvious reasons. If it doesn't go through, then I would table it or continue the hearing appropriately. Continue it, let's do our research and come back and then take a vote at that point.
Thank you, David. Okay, so Eldon made a motion to
recommend it, yes.
To grant both licenses. I'll second the motion. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I just ask you to include in that motion that it's subject to any appeal that Little Buck has, so subject to any exhaustion of that
that's true.
appeal period and appeal.
Yep.
And final inspection.
Okay, so there is always the chance that the license won't become available depending on the appeal process for the license we just revoked. So do you want to include that in your motion?
Yes, I'll include that in my motion.
Second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
One opposed. The motion carries. Okay. I would suggest following what Sergeant Warner tells you going forward, and just make sure that you treat everything he says as if it is in writing and pay attention to what he has to say. Thank you. Motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Good to see you, Dave.
Take a 5-minute break. Permissible?
There's a motion for a 5-minute recess from Denise. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are in recess. We are now back in session. Next on the agenda, we have Mr. Dupuis to discuss the 40B process in general. I'm not sure if it's in general or specific to this project.
It is in general, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. As said, my name is John Dupuis, 3 Catano Circle. I just wanted to speak briefly about the overall 40B process and how the Board of Selectmen perhaps can put in a process when receiving notification. Under the 40B law, the first official notification from a subsidizing authority goes to the selectmen, and that opens up a 30-day comment period. Right now, going back and also going, let's take, for example, the very last one, which is Old Bridgewater, which will be presented a little bit later on. That item was not placed onto the agenda until after the 30-day comment period had closed. Now, there's always the opportunity to go back to the subsidizing authority and go beyond that 30 to provide comments. But what hasn't been happening, and what I think needs to happen, is that as soon as the 40B letter is received regarding an application from a subsidizing authority, this board should make the town aware and give the town, and not just the boards and governmental entities of the town, an opportunity to comment on the 40B project, which is being proposed. I mean, that 30-day period has to go towards the site application and whether it is a valid site application. And let's take for this particular example, the last one, the 40B Old Bridgewater, there's a question about an easement going across part of the property and whether or not it was required to be voted on at town meeting. Now, my argument is under Mass General Law 40, Section 3, absolutely. Any easement granted over town-owned property, whether accepting that property into the town through purchase, you know, the municipality can't just grant that easement. The town, actually, the legislative body, actually has to go forward and vote on that easement. And that hasn't happened in this case. If that 30-day comment period had been open to the public, that is information which could have been imparted to the subsidizing authority and going through the review process on whether or not the site application was valid and approved. Overall, I'm just asking this board, instead of waiting for the ZBA to be the first notice when the hearing is opened, to, when a 40B letter comes in, put it immediately on the next agenda. If it requires a revised agenda, that would be you know, appropriate as well. And then post the letter, giving notice to the town so that appropriate comments and notification can get to the people who are most going to be impacted. So that's my request. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Not really questions. So I know that happened in this process. I know we were beyond the 30 days. Fortunately for this specific project, we didn't have many comments. I know in the past, the Scotland Street one especially, there were many, many concerns which were expressed through that letter to the state authority. And I understand where your concern's coming from, that we should put it on right away to make people aware. I do think that the ZBA has a great process of hearing people. They have their entire hearing process. They get a bigger room.
Well, that's statutory. They have to.
Yeah, yeah. So that is and they're the decision makers.
Yeah.
So they're the most important people to hear the concerns that residents or anyone has. But I do completely understand what you're saying. In this case, it didn't happen. We didn't put it on the agenda within 30 days. I don't recall why that was.
And with all due respect, it doesn't get to the ZBA until it is approved by a subsidizing housing authority. So, you know, comments coming from the public may actually impact their opinion and their vote on whether or not that is a valid site to move forward with. So, you know.
Okay. See, I usually follow up on something like this. You know how you make a doctor's appointment a year ahead of time. That the time I was at my doctor. Now, as far as the walkthrough over there, I was never informed of the walkthrough. So it was completely miscommunication there too. You know, I know exactly, and then there's still some things I don't understand, you know, involving the housing authority, the water department there. I still haven't come up to date of what took place there as far as that part of it, you know.
Right. The Conservation Committee also has a severe issue with the site as well, so.
Yeah, see what I mean? That's the thing.
And that wasn't put into, and whether they chose not to provide comments as well. I know only the water department provided comments, but in the letter for the site application approval, you know, they specifically note that the town had no comments other than the water department. And I think there needs to be a better process so that, you know, the town people know way before the ZBA so that they can provide comments, and it may not get to that point, so.
I agree with your recommendation, and I'd like to think it can be done. I always hesitate to say, sure, we're going to guarantee that gets done, because we all know how good a guarantee can be in anything in life. So I think it's reasonable what you've asked for, and I think all efforts should be made to do that. But again, I go short, John, rather, of saying guarantee.
Yep, no, understood.
Because someone's out or someone's sick and it doesn't happen, those things can happen in life. But I think all reasonable efforts should be made to do that.
And I think one of the first things that could happen is creating a new link under the document area. and putting it up for, first within the news section. The town's received the new 40B. You can review the letter from the subsidizing authority under here. Boom, done. It's pretty straightforward to do something like that. So, all right.
Well, it's good you keep
Thank
an
you.
eye on these things.
Thank you.
It's appreciated.
All right.
Okay, up next on the agenda, we have Mr. Priesco.
Hello.
How are you?
Brad Priesco, 35 Progressive Avenue. I want to thank you for allowing me to address this board. This is a follow-up to the pay raise at the town meeting that caused quite a stir. And David Gagne has explained to me that that's a done deal. I'm not here trying to rescind that raise at all because of his signed contract. But I really think that there should be some checks and balances where pay raises are only ratified at town meeting or something like that. That man, and not singling out that person at all. The $12,000 was the hot topic issue, not what department he works for. But when his department head did the comparable salaries, he used the big money towns. He didn't even get to finish running off the list and people were laughing. He used Hingham, Situate, Norwell. I mean, those are big money. We're not in their class. We're a working class community here, bedroom community. What we do with the Board of Health, I'm a member of the Board of Health. What we do is we check with Avon, Rainham, things like that, East Bridgewater. I think that should have been done on that, but that's that. Again, I'm not focusing on that one issue. I'd like to see it that, I don't know why, I guess I don't know why, I don't understand why, that somebody came before town meeting and his raise was already signed contract, as they pointed out. Because we also gave our Board of Health inspector a raise, but we did, like I said, we checked with Avon and this and that. But we waited until the town meeting was approved, our budget was approved, to let him know that his raise went through, you know? I'm not begrudging anybody a raise. It's just, I don't think, I don't think that it was done right. And one of the things that really agitated people was the fact that you let us take a vote, which we thought was voting down, because we don't know. We're not lawyers, you know? We don't know. You had your legal man up there, and they let us take a vote, and we thought we won with voting down his raise. And then we find out that that had nothing to do with his raise, so we took $12,000 out of the budget, of the assessor's budget. So what does that mean? They run out of staples and paper clips? That gave a bad taste to a lot of people, the way that whole thing went down. And I've heard from several people in town that, why do we bother with town meeting? And David was telling me, I wish I remembered, because he spent some time on the phone with me, that there's only a few towns left that operate the way that we do. And you know, it's a shame if people have that feeling that town meeting, everything is already a done deal before they get there. That's, I wonder if you have some ideas of how we could straighten this out so that next year we don't run into this again, because those same people, if they do come back to town meeting, which I hope they do, are going to be walking through those doors with eyes wide open.
There's many things that you mentioned that I completely agree with. A couple I might not be on the same page, so I think you mentioned consistency. We don't have that at all because we have so many elected boards that have the authority to sign contracts. The water department, the assessors, the school committee, there's a couple others, and there isn't consistency between those contracts. We encourage the other elected boards to go through the town administrator to seek guidance, but that doesn't always happen. Unfortunately, we have no way of forcing them to do that. we would love to see that happen. I don't know whether the one you're speaking about was or wasn't gone through the administrator, and whether or not, if it was, they took or didn't take his advice. But you're completely right on that page. It would be better off having a single human resources person to be focused on these contracts and making sure that they're consistent, legal, make sense, and are done appropriately. As for the voting at town meeting on a raise, I'm not sure I'm fully on the same page there. I think that it's tough. I can say I wouldn't want to work in a job where my raise depended entirely on a town meeting vote. I wouldn't want to be subject to that. I think that it makes more sense for the bosses, so I'll use David as an example. It makes more sense for David's salary to be determined by this board, the people he works for, the people who are working with him on a day-to-day basis, rather than a group of a few hundred people who aren't working with him
Right.
on a day-to-day basis.
No, I got you on that. I understand that you wouldn't want, I understand completely. I don't feel that way either. I shouldn't have written it like that, that the pay raises. But what if we did this, though? What if they went the same route that the Board of Health went, where we included his raise, and, you know, when we're stuck like everybody else with the union for the clerical, that, you know, our hands are tied there. We don't want to have our hands tied with everything, and then have a leader of that department that's not doing the due diligence properly. Now, it was this department this year. What about next year if it's water department, as you mentioned, or police department, or whatever? My opinion is that if it was put into the budget, so say, and I don't even know what the assessor's budget is, but let's just use a round number. Let's say it's $50,000 for the year, right? Well, that wouldn't make sense because he makes 82. Let's say
100.
Let's say 200,000 for the year. But out of that, he's going to buy all the paperwork that he needs for his blueprints and this and that, and he's going to pay his salaries. Why could we not vote for the 200,000 at town meeting, approve that, rather than someone walking in there with a $12,000 raise already in his pocket and nothing we can do about it? So now we're cutting back on the paper products. Would that be something that?
Well, I'm not sure I see the difference between that and voting on the raise itself. It seems like that would essentially be the same thing, just in kind of a different way. It would still give the town meeting the ability, again, I mean, it's not always going to be a negative situation where the town fails to mention a number of contracts, and we voted on a number of contracts that you probably didn't even know about. David has a contract, the police chief has a contract, the superintendent has a contract. They all have 3-year contracts. This one was singled out. Some of those contracts were new this year. And no one said a word about those.
Right.
I think what you're doing is right with the Board of Health, but I think you might be in the minority on this. It's kind of become the industry standard. It's not required that these positions have a contract, but it's kind of become the norm in the industry, in the public sector, because of elected officials, politics. So it's been their safety net in order to avoid politics. Very different than the private sector, where pretty much everyone's an employee at will. Right. Because no one's voting on their raise. So I think that's the big difference. I'd just be wary of having salaries going directly to the town meeting vote. We do, so that, is that the budget book right there?
Yep.
So in that, we provide a lot more information than other towns. I don't know if you've looked at what other towns do.
No.
many towns don't break it out line by line. They just have the total budget, or they might have two categories. We provide a lot more information, which starts discussions like the one that happened at this past town meeting.
Right.
So I don't know what the solution is to that, but I'm just wary of having salaries going for a town meeting vote.
May I say something?
Of course.
Okay. Thank you for coming. And I agree with what Anthony says, is one of our issues is that our contracts are not consistent, and sometimes they're negotiated, designed, and everything by that particular department. So they create the whole contract. And I'm not putting any doubt on their skills, but I don't think I'm skilled enough to create an employment contract. And we have folks that volunteer or are elected for these positions, whatever the case may be, creating contracts that have gotten us into trouble. The Kruger case, everyone knows about it. It's public record. So I do agree we need overview of contracts. I just don't know about a full-time HR person, if we can or should be considering that's where our funds should go for the next employment position in the town. One of the issues with that contract is that it was negotiated at an open public meeting of the Board of Assessors, and before it was voted on, the public should have been able to come back into the meeting. So the contract was negotiated during executive session. The meeting was to open back up, and then the public be able to come back in, ask questions if opportunity allowed itself, and then the contract would be voted on. But there was a misunderstanding as to whether the meeting resumed, and the public didn't have the opportunity to rejoin that meeting and participate in it at all. So that there are opportunities during public meetings to comment on contracts. And I tend to agree with you as far as if a salary increase is significantly above the norm, or not all members of the board vote on it, then it should go to the people of the town to make the decision. And again, I'm not talking about when we're doing a 2.5% or 3%, a average increase, but when it jumps up to 7, 8, 10%, then I think the town...
Or 18.
Or 18%, and not all members of that board vote in approval of it. I do think it should go to the town. How it gets there, what the vehicle is for it. David has explained to me in the past that some salaries are not subject to appropriation, which means a board could, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, a board could approve a salary increase regardless of if the town's approved it yet.
Right, but this one here, where for fiscal year 17, that position paid $39,921.
That was part-time at the time.
Exactly.
Okay.
So then the next year, they went to full-time, and that position went to $70,000. It makes sense.
It does.
It's double, thereabouts, a little less. But what threw the fly in the ointment was that $12,000 increase on his first year. I mean, this guy's got to be awful good.
Well, that's why I asked
You know
what
happens here,
towns were
Brad?
surveyed.
What really happens here is, we hire, and, you know, we go out and we interview with people, and we bring them in. And we probably hire as cheap as we can get the person, okay? Then when the person proves himself, this is where we get in a problem moving the thing up, okay? Maybe we should just establish scales for these jobs and just hold it right there, okay? And then when you start to move it up, you know, and you know, now we are in competition with other communities who are paying, like David's job, you just look, he's way underpaid as far as what other communities, even our size, is paid, okay? We have to look at all of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like the state there, in 1993, they passed that thing for the foundation budget, okay, there. But they've never done a dang thing since 1993. What has happened since 1993? Just think about it. New technology.
Yeah.
Health insurance has gone out and the thing. But the state has not compensated back to the communities. So it's coming out of the communities. It's coming out of our budgets, each and every one of our budgets here. So that- You know, this is the thing. And as far as like Denise come in as a time now, naturally she hasn't seen anything. She starts asking damn questions. Maybe the town meeting should be. We used to have the town meeting in April. Okay? Now we move all the way to June, okay? And a lot of the things have been set. So what do you say to a person that just came in? I mean, she wants to know, you know, what's going on, you know, and you say like, the superintendent of schools, that's a 5-year contract. We're on the first of that contract, you know?
Yep.
But you know, the structure can be changed, you're right, like that. But what you hear out there, I had quite a few people reporting back for the town meeting to me. It was ridiculous. Just the attitude of the people and what they were saying. You know as well as I do, a lot of them are overexpended out there. You know that when we grew up, we made just a certain amount of money. Now a lot of them make terrific money, but they don't have anything. They don't own their cars. They're trying to bring up their families. They don't own their houses. And they're in tough shape, okay?
Yeah.
So, you know, when I run, it ain't only the old that's getting the limited Social Security you're worried about. The new people out there, they're hurt. They're frustrated, and that's what you see. So once a year or twice a year, they get a chance to make the comments, and half the time, they're not even staying in the 4 scores of the article. And that burns me. You know, they're off to Lollyland somewhere, you know what I mean? And it makes everything, you know, it sounds good there. You got some people are up 5, 6, or 7 or 8 times, okay? And then the whole group, there's probably 10 people out there, most negative people you could ever have. In fact, I heard from 2 today. I mean, you know, and the most, and you know this, they don't, I don't know how to put this, but it's just that they don't, their opinions, they don't present facts to you. How can you deal with the thing, you know what I mean?
I know.
Well,
Who'd you say they were?
Huh?
Who'd you say they were?
I'm not saying. No, but it's frustrating to be where I've been here a long time, you know what I'm saying? Unless I can, it's just like when I took the vote on the lines there. That's not really clear what I'm getting from the ABC. They're supposed to be the ones you go for the information.
Right.
David gets one answer, the police chief gets another answer. Huh? What is the right answer here? You know?
And I know you've got a lot of people here, so I
Yeah,
don't want to.
no, I appreciate it. You
No,
made
no, but
some
you
very
got a
good
point.
points.
You got a point.
We need consistency, we
Put your
absolutely
hands up over
do.
there.
Just trying to get Anthony's attention when he
Ms.
was
Bunker?
say. I just want to say, I agree with Brad. That is how contracts should be done, because I'm on the Board of Assessors, and that was one of my things is, how can we put this large of a raise in there without it going before town meeting? Because, you know, and like you said, or Brad mentioned, you know, maybe a percentage, but like you've said during our conversation, we're an elected board. You have no control of us. So how could you even make any sort of standard contract when we don't have to adhere to it?
I don't know if we
That's the
could
thing.
without charter
with
reform.
These boards not being under anybody's control, we can do anything we want essentially.
Can.
And that's not, I mean, for some boards it works out okay, but I don't think it's
Yeah, no,
how
I mean,
it should be. We're too big at this
that's
point.
why-
It's not like 50 years ago.
All we can do is encourage. We have the professional staff right here who's more than willing to help out with
Oh, yeah.
any one of these elected boards.
Oh, I know. Trust me, I think David was sick of hearing me.
Yeah.
Going, what's this? How do I do this? What does this mean?
But it's clear, it didn't work out for the water department, it didn't work out for the town as far as the Board of Assessors was concerned. And I don't know, but I would love to know how we could get some consistency in these contracts and enforce it.
So, I think the board is fully aware, and I know I don't have its full support, but I think the board is fully aware that I firmly believe that we need to have an HR person. We are now approaching a $40 million budget, and I would challenge anyone to go out there with a company that brings in $40 million per year at a minimum, because that doesn't include revolving accounts and some other funds, and they don't have an HR person with 300 employees. So, although we wouldn't be able to have necessarily teeth, because we still are not, as the chairman said, we're not probably going to undergo charter reform, which is what my conversation with Brad entailed. is if we had an HR person that created standards, the selectmen voted on the standards, we established standards, and those standards were to be presented to those other boards. So for example, let's assume that the research dictates that a principal assessor in this town should make in the range of $70,000 and $77,000. The Board of Assessors could still vote on a contract at 82. You have statutory authority to do that. But at town meeting, now we can make a presentation and we could say, look, it should have fallen within this range. And maybe town meeting would have voted at 77,000. It would still shorten the budget by 6. It wouldn't hamper, or 5, I'm sorry. It wouldn't hamper the budget as much. But that is the way I believe that we envision as a start. And then over time, I do believe that if we have professional standards set with a professional presentation, other boards and committees will have buy-in, and we wouldn't have some of these challenges that we do today.
Thank you, David.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate you coming.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in, Brad.
See you later.
Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, Dave.
Great. Old Bridgewater Place.
Good evening. Chairman, members of the Board of Selectmen. My name is Jim Burke. I'm an attorney at law with offices at 48 North Thrill Street, Boston, Massachusetts. And I have the pleasure to represent Bill Adams. I've represented Bill for a number of years. Bill is a successful real estate developer, and he has owned land within West Bridgewater for a number of years. And he has one specific parcel of land that he has decided to develop. And as part of the development, he is utilizing the statutory framework under Mass General Law, Chapter 40B. West Bridgewater is very experienced in 40B projects. You've had a few in the last few years, so you understand the procedural aspects. As part of that 40B project, we developed an engineering team, an architectural team, consultant team, traffic consultant, and put together a program that we submitted in part of our application to the Board of Selectmen under 40B. And basically what you have before you, we hope is an exceptional project. It's 54 residential rental units, which becomes important for the town of West Bridgewater because rental units, you are allowed to count the entire project with your statutory criteria or threshold. The town at filing, I believe, was at 4.6%, substantially under the 10% mandate, but the 54 units would make a substantial impact on your number of units. These units are going to be mixed 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. There are 98 parking spots on a 16-acre parcel. Of the 16-acre parcel, I believe only about 7 acres are ultimately going to be subject to development. It is an isolated location, which I think is wonderful for a 40B project. To the north and to the rear is the MBTA line. There are only 2 residential structures that are real abutters, and that is on the Teresa Road property. And the developer is going to try to make a concerted effort to create, in addition to natural buffering, other design standards that will have a minimal impact to the extent you can have a minimal impact on the visual aesthetics of those 2 properties. The project would enter on Belmont Street, and it would, if you want to just go ahead and let's thumb through it, please. So that's the original project. I heard one comment, something about the Conservation Commission. We've already received our wetland line approved from the Conservation Commission, so there is no dispute as to what the project's boundaries in terms of buffer is. That is, in fact, that's a wetland delineation right there.
Right, that's the one.
And the project basically is designed in this area. Go ahead, Bill.
Could you point out the Housing Authority land and the easement?
The Housing Authority land is right here.
Okay, so that's the roadway right smack in the middle of it?
Yeah. Go ahead, Bill. And again, that's a basic layout. As you know from your experience on the 40B projects, original plans generally are not the final plans that are approved. There are often revisions based on input from the town's consultants and from the Zoning Board of Appeals. The town has in fact engaged a consultant that of course the developer will pay for, and that is Greg Driscoll and Driscoll Jacobs Engineering out of Brockton. He will be formulating some comments, and once those comments are formulated, Walter Hermano, who assists Mr. Adams, will respond, and that response, I'm sure, will result in some modifications and changes in design. But there basically are two buildings, 27 units apiece. They are three-story buildings, and in the middle there is a, what would you call a clubhouse? Clubhouse, a clubhouse for the general facilities. And have you got anything else? Go ahead, no. No, that's good enough. If you go to the actual design. And again, as the board knows, we've already begun our presentation with the Zoning Board of Appeals, but are happy to give the overview to the selectmen. Respond if we can to any specific questions you may raise. So that's the design. Barry Court's design firm in Brockton is doing the work. Really, I think it's an attractive upscale project. They all have balconies, so your visual lines, you're not looking at straight fascias. You've got detail in terms of the roof line, in terms of the balconies, and go ahead, you can thumb through them. Okay. That little building, of course, is the clubhouse.
Let's show you.
It's another visual with some parking and the clubhouse. Go ahead, Bill. Yeah. Again, in individual unit design showing the 3 floors. There are laundry facilities in every room as part of the project. Go ahead, what else?
There's elevators.
And elevators. I need an elevator. And there you go. And that actually shows the proximity to the standalone garages. They proved to be, in 40B projects, extremely attractive. And they're rented separately on a monthly basis. And generally, most of the projects that have been developed in the last number of years, the demand has been very high for the garages. So that's a benefit that yeah, the lower level is actually a good level of design of what the property looks like. There's a natural buffer line along the Teresa Road property, of course the MBTA line, and on the other side is essentially wetland woodlands that has no effect on visually any abutter. So that's essentially the project. The process is such that we have begun the public hearing process with the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have made an introduction in terms of identifying the project and some initial discussions about waivers and other issues, and we will substantively be going into probably the engineering, which generally in these projects include groundwater, drainage, and of course, which is always a concern in any residential project, the traffic analysis. We are confident that from our report from a very experienced traffic consultant, that there will be, in fact, a minimal or de minimis impact on the traffic pattern as a result of the development of the project. I understand that neighbors can get concerned and reach their own conclusions, but again, when you develop a project, you have to use experts in the field who've done it every day in projects throughout the country based on formulas that are well established, and they reach conclusions. Ours has, and I have no doubt that the town's consulting traffic consultant will arrive at the same conclusion. So I'm not sure if there are any other questions. This is not supposed to be a lengthy presentation, but if there's anything else we can help you with. Any questions?
I actually attended the planning board meeting and.
Zoning board?
Zoning board, thank you. And I believe what you mentioned, that soon you would have the engineer available to speak to the residents if they attend the next meeting to explain the process that he went through in doing the traffic study?
That's really the, select person Reese, that's really that's really a determination for the Zoning Board of Appeals to decide as to when the issues will be brought forward. And I was specifically left with the impression that they were going to tell us when they wanted the traffic consultant, and it would not be at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
On the same subject, where are the addresses coming out? Are they coming out on Belmont Street, coming out on Plain Street?
Comes out on Belmont.
Very narrow street with a bad curve.
Where, Elvis?
Where on Belmont is that coming out?
Right at.
Go to the first prop, go to the first. That one's good right there. The site locus is good right
Right to the show coming on the street.
there. Yeah, it does.
The show coming out actually.
Well, no, it doesn't need to.
That shows you the-
He's just asking where the interconnected the streets are, and that's the layout, is it, in terms of the neighborhood.
Is it a 50-foot road coming out, or what?
So it's right at that curve, right, essentially where the road would be.
It comes out on a, actually comes out on a great angle that allows you to have vision on both ways, both directions. So
One of the concerns you have in these projects all the time is the sight line for the ingress and egress. And the sight line is exceptional in terms of the ability to see coming traffic from the exit point. But again, that's all contained within the traffic analysis.
Are you planning to do anything about the lighting in that area there?
What lighting?
The lighting as you come out onto the street there.
Street lights?
Visibility, yeah. Is that part of it?
Again, that's, when issues are raised by the by the Zoning Board of Appeals, we'll respond to them. It's part of a process. And as you also are aware, one of the issues, because it is a 40B project, is you're always grappling with the problem that everyone would like to add something to a project. But if the additions make the project uneconomic, then that in fact is something that a determination of the Housing Appeals Committee would strike down if it impacts the viability of the project. But we're a long way from there.
How is that going to interact with the land that the town owns for the housing?
And I don't know how to answer that
Right on the
question,
curve.
but I will.
I mean, they're eventually gonna do something there.
So if the housing authority were actually to use that land, they'd have to have the entrance at the exact same point, right? Because that's.
Yeah, it'll be the same point.
So there's really no avoiding that location for entrance, right?
That is the entrance. It was a designed entrance because when the property was sold to the Housing Authority, and I think the selectmen may have seen a letter from its council in terms of assisting an overview. The property was in fact never owned by the Housing Authority when the easement was created. When Mr. Adams sold it to the Housing Authority, he reserved an easement over the property. So the only rights that they took was ownership of the property subject to the easement. So they were never in a situation in which the Housing Authority granted an easement on the property in question. So also, the easement was very specific about future access for residential development to its remaining land.
Okay. Any further questions?
I don't know.
If the board would be so inclined, I have no problem. Obviously, the ZBA hearing is still open. I have no problem if on behalf of the board, I've captured two concerns about lighting on Belmont Street and also if the future, if that land is going to be developed potentially in the future, you'd have to share the access. I have no problem sharing those concerns with the ZBA
Yeah, that
if the
would be
board
great.
would
Yeah, right.
would do so.
Traffic as well?
Well, the
That's a
traffic
concern.
will be automatically.
Yeah, the
Okay.
traffic study. Okay, Mr. Dupuis, did you have something?
Well, I just wanted to dispute the assertion made by Attorney Burke about the granting of the easement. The property itself was acquired by the West Bridgewater Housing Authority, subject to an easement. And that easement had to go before town meeting. Under MGL 40, Section 3, there's case law on this. It needed to go before the town to accept that property with that easement. Right now, that easement is not valid.
So in that case,
that's
would the owner
absolutely-
still be Mr. Adams?
That's
if town
absolutely
couldn't have
an
accepted
inaccurate
it?
statement of the law.
Huh?
Absolutely an inaccurate statement
Really?
of the law. You have a letter from your town council, I believe, that was submitted to the zoning board of appeals, which basically outlines the issue. And I will tell you, just from experience, because we all have experience and develop them and use them, I represented a redevelopment authority for 29 years. Redevelopment authorities and housing authorities are all created under the statutory framework of Mass General Law, Chapter 121A and 121B. As such, both housing authorities and redevelopment authorities are public bodies, corporate and politic. They are not town departments. They are not subject to town appropriation. They are not subject to the statutory reference that Mr. Dupuis just referenced. In fact, the statute is explicitly clear that housing authorities have the ability to independently contract, to own land, and to sell land. And it's not subject to a determination, review, or referral before a local municipality. It's absolutely an incorrect statement of the law. And I believe, my opinion, was also adopted by your town council.
If I may, the town council specifically stated in his letter, therefore, I would concur with Attorney Burke's analysis. One, the analysis presented did not go to the actual easement and the voting under 40, Section 3. He further went on to state, please note that I have not undertaken an independent title review, and this concurrence on my part is based only on my review of Attorney Burke's correspondence. Attorney Burke never addressed that issue in his letter to the zoning board either. I believe he is misstating the law, he is misstating the case law, and he is misstating his position. The easement is absolutely required under MGL 43 to go to the town for vote. And that contract that he mentioned is part of that requirement. Because the board entered the requirement with a condition that the legislative body is required to meet.
How about,
Actually,
would you mind just submitting the chapter you just mentioned, just submitting it to town council for?
no, if I can, before we go there, and I'm happy to cooperate in any reasonable way, but David Gay answered that question. Either Mr. Dupuis didn't want to read his opinion, or he was a little bit overwhelmed at the language and blinded by it. Because what Mr. Gay specifically said was, in his letter, was that nothing to do with my comments, which were related to the issue. He independently identified, stating that housing authorities are in fact public bodies under 121A, and that no town meeting vote was required. I don't know how you can be more explicit in terms of answering your question.
David, I don't know if I read this letter or not. Do you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty well versed in it. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, and we have strong opinions on both sides. My recommendation is as follows, is that the Zoning Board of Appeals is where this process belongs. During that process, there will be appeal rights, and if somebody believes that there is an error of law, somebody is going to be able to appeal the project as allowed in the process. However, one item of note that I've spoken to each one of you individually on this and had made a recommendation that because it does border and the easement goes through our land, is I do think that it'd be highly advantageous and responsible for us to do the independent title review. That doesn't cost a lot of money. Obviously, this property is going to be here for a long time, and therefore it would thwart any future potential issues in reference to the title work. That's really separate from the easement, whether or not the easement needs to have been accepted or not. But I do think that we need to do the title work, and unless the board directs me otherwise, I plan on doing so. And then during the zoning board of appeals process, if this argument continues to surface, I think that that person or persons will have the ability to be able to entertain the appeals process that's allowed by law.
Do you need a vote for that, or? Are you?
No, I mean, unless you get a vote to tell me not to do the title work, I just think that it's the
Oh,
responsible thing
okay.
to do.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So David, would the title work address John's concerns, or that's a separate issue?
Well, the title work is just going to make sure that everything has been legally documented and approved, and the layout and the bounds and the meet and the bounds and all those other items. Whether they weigh in on the easement or not, I'm not exactly sure. We'll find out at that point. But I do think that at least at this point, town council feels confident in his assessment of the easement, but not necessarily in reference to whether or not the process was followed in the transfer of land. So that's what the title work will do. And if the title work turns up that everything was kosher, then we'll move forward. And if not, then we would handle it at that point.
So it
But
does.
again, it would be handled through the ZBA process. No, it's okay.
I mean, we have two lawyers going back and forth,
Mhm.
and we have very divergent opinions
Yeah, exactly.
on case law and on statutory law, so.
Actually, we have 3 lawyers.
Okay,
And the third lawyer
anything
said
further
that
from
we
the
should
board?
do further review.
Anything further from the board?
Other than, I agree with the title search, and I still reserve some rights, some questions based on what's been said tonight. But, just throwing that out there. Obviously, nothing we need to be concerned about tonight.
Thank you for coming in.
It certainly is our pleasure and privilege.
Thank you.
Thank the board for its time. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Scott?
All right, this should be a quick one.
Hopefully.
We had a $1.5 million short-term note coming due on July 20th. We had taken it out for the school about a year and a half ago. We rolled it last October. This goes with the $1 million note that you signed a couple weeks ago. We're still expecting about $3.5 million back from the MSBA once the project's complete. But for now, I just need the signature so we can get the note and pay it.
Thank you.
So there were 2 bids on the two bids on the note, both for $275. So we ended up awarding it to Unibank.
Scott, is there a formal vote they have to take?
No.
What did you say the interest rate was, Scott?
275. Interest rates have last year it was 130.
And
So
hopefully
they-
that's 2.75.
2.75.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
Still not that bad compared to the private market, at least.
And this is 1.5 million?
1.5 million, yes.
This is a copy of that.
Yeah, just 2 copies of it.
All right.
That's it.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Okay, public comment period. Anyone from the public have anything?
I just have hey, look, it's me, I'm Len. Just in regards, there's a significant amount of litigation being addressed in executive session. I just wanted to know if the board would be willing to give a synopsis of what each of the litigation, either occurring or being threatened, entails, that they feel comfortable without
I'm going to ask David to do this.
Sure, that's fine. So what I can tell you is on A, which is an unfair labor practice, that's already a public document, that's been filed. We believe that we've reached an agreement, but again, it's up to the board to make that decision. Under C, we believe we've reached an agreement as well, but again, the board has to make that decision. On D, we've done a lot of that in public session. We've attempted to negotiate. There's going to be a settlement that they're going to review, but if not, then we're going to be named as part in a federal lawsuit.
Yep.
And then the last one is that Mr. Rogers has an agreement with the town, a separation agreement, and he has, at this point, he has threatened action against us. And so I need to advise the board as to what that action is and the purpose of his threatened action, and then they have to make a decision as to what they would like to do.
And you feel that litigation is imminent?
Well, I have it in writing.
Okay. Well, because in order to be an executive session to discuss threatened litigation, it's got to be imminent or impending. It can't just be.
I'll be the first to admit that I wish that I didn't have it in writing.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Paula, nothing?
I got stuff, but I'll
I'll
get you tomorrow.
9:30.
I guess I'd like to talk to Paul about.
So one thing I do want to let you know, Mr. Chairman, under Warrants and Board of Selectmen business, we still have I-complete streets to finish.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll finish with public comment period. Eldon has something.
Yeah, I'm kind of addressing you. You told me about the mosquito control or something, and told Chris, I got a call from Mr. Quaid today. He's going to go out and look at it tomorrow. And if the thing isn't repaired, I mean soon, I'll go to the Enterprise, believe me. They went up there. I don't know who it was, because I can't blame it. It was the mosquito control. They cut trees down. They're right across the brook. They're filling in the thing. Yesterday we had rain. I had all kinds of wetness coming over.
They cut
Who
it
is-
down
yeah.
over Grant Street?
Grant Street. Go over and take a look at it. They're going to mess up there. The person who did that should be fired. That's what I feel about it.
I haven't been over on Grant Street.
Well,
but
just
I
go
was
over
the
there and see what they
excavator.
did. It's a mess.
Mosquito control hasn't moved.
Who is heading that project anyhow? Who's in charge of that project?
I don't think mosquito control would have been over there cutting trees down.
Well, it wasn't Chris that said that he was cutting the trees down, so somebody's got to be responsible for this.
I don't know, did Chris call them?
I have no, he's going to get back to me.
Did you?
It wasn't me.
You should have paid the toll when you kept walking by.
Well, there's
Okay,
the
no,
question.
take
Is
a
it
ride
someone
over-
random? I mean, is it?
Take a ride over to your south
Construction.
and see the mess.
No, not that we're talking about.
Okay.
And Dick mentioned, when we had the problem before, we went down and cleaned the stream down behind Tiffany, okay?
Right.
They're working the other way. And that moved the stream down, because there was an awful lot of trees and everything else a couple of years ago when we did it. But I'll tell you, it's a mess up there right now.
Right, because the water comes from across North Elm, through the property, cuts through by your property, floods you out, and goes behind Tiffany.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Tiffany's
But the
not-
problem is behind Tiffany where it's been blocked up.
Well.
That's why the
part
water
of
is
the
not.
problem. But even,
Uh,
even if North Main Street to Grant is cleared out, if Tiffany's not cleaned, the water's not gonna go anywhere. It may help it a little bit, but it's still gonna be flooded. You're still gonna end up being underwater, and so are we.
Yeah, Selectman Moore, I can tell you that Chris has been in touch with mosquito control because that area has been overgrown and it need to be cut back and handled. You and I had a conversation early today, but I never.
See, I don't know, but it's still.
I never had
still there. I walked down there tonight and it's still there.
So.
I don't know who, I haven't been over there, so I have no idea.
Yeah, and I wasn't given notice. I know the mosquito control has been contacted, but I had no idea what date they were coming out.
Well, I can't say
They
they,
called me, before the 4th.
nobody seems to know who did it.
Said that they were gonna be out, they had to, I think he said they have to spray for 5 days, they gotta do something for 5 days. And then with the holiday, they'd be coming out after the holiday.
No,
I'm assuming he's coming out sometime this week, but the excavator, as of yesterday, hadn't moved yet.
Okay, all right.
All right.
Okay, I just want to tell you what's going on up there.
Anything else for public comment period? Nope. Okay. Tracy, you have an update on complete streets.
So we've got the ball rolling, we have an agreement in place with the state, and before you tonight is the agreement between the town and the consultant that is going to be helping get the prioritization plan in place. There's also a meeting of the working group scheduled for next week. This consultant is planning to attend, so just asking for authorization to have, I think David would be signing this document, and then just authorization to have David sign any agreements moving forward.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you, Tracy.
And just to be clear, the spirit of that is to actually award the contract to that vendor.
Okay. All right, town administrator's report, I am assuming it's a quick one?
It is. So under A, there is, I, as chief procurement officer, I put out a recycled products to endeavor that we will use recycled products whenever possible. That was done so that we could receive grants in the future from Mass DOT. Under B, which is an amendment to our existing engineering services, there is soil issues that we had up at the East Street, East Center Street project. I could either have the engineer do the work, or after awarded to the contract, have them do the work, but I think we ran a larger risk at that point. So I asked the engineer to do the work. So I'm asking you to sign an amendment to the existing engineering contract in the amount of $5,545.31. And I will need a vote to that one. And then on C, I would ask you to also take a vote to, you would award a contract to IW Harding Construction. We went out to bid. There was 5 bidders. They were the lowest bid, and their contract is before you as well. So in essence, I'd be looking for 2 different votes.
Okay, is there a vote for the first, the $5,500 change order?
So moved.
So, I had a little bit of a conversation with David. I think doing this is going to save us quite a bit of money, the way you explained it.
Yep, so we are vastly below budget. Yes, that is absolutely correct.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay, and the second vote for IW Harding Construction is,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
I placed the next item on the agenda, really as an FYI. It's on page 169, 170 of your report. It's the aggregation savings report. As you know, we aggregated as a municipality. They provide the report as they're required by law over a 6-month period of time. In November, the town collectively saved $84,000 for that month, or about $37 a meter. And in March, it was $65,000, or about $29 a meter. So again, I think the Board of Selectmen did something that was really helpful that they didn't have to do. It gave people an opportunity during the winter rates to save $30 a month. We'll see if the savings exists in the future, but at least I was there. Under the next one, the board had asked me in the past as to whether or not we'd see reimbursements for the March winter storm. There is no funds, unfortunately, available for residential or commercial customers. However, FEMA has made it known that they are entertaining possible reimbursement funds for municipalities and the expenses that we incurred. So I'm going to be at that meeting on July 16th. We'll find out what those expenses are for potential reimbursement. I'll have a handful of department heads with me as well, as the other ones who individually incurred the expenses. Hopefully we'll get some money back. Next on the agenda is 2 budget transfers that I will need your vote and signature on. One is in reference to the Rent Control Board. We only budget a couple of $1,000s for that budget every year. Obviously, if we have more petitions like we did this year, or more meetings, she potentially goes over budget. She went over budget by $450. So I would be asking you to do a transfer from the finance reserve for $450. The fire one is for $15,000. They have not gone over budget the last handful of years, but they did have 2 long-term injuries. And honestly, I think that between Chief Hunt and Chief May, they did a really good job of attempting to balance their budget, because with 2 people out, you're filling that out at overtime and running another shift. So they're only looking for $15,000, so I'll look for a vote for both of those, please.
Is there a motion for those 2 transfers?
No, let's talk about the fire before we go. Now, they got money. We did have something at the town meeting there, okay, that is going to come out of the insurance?
Yep, so as part of
How
our...
does that stand?
Yep, so as part of our insurance is that whenever we get reimbursed,
Yeah.
that is going to go into a revolving account. Currently, we're getting reimbursed
Yeah.
at 75% of that figure, but it goes into the general fund, so it doesn't replenish the budget. So that's why he's running short this year. But now, because July 1st is the new fiscal year,
Yeah.
that authorization will kick in.
Okay,
So going
the
forward...
authorization hasn't taken
And we
effect.
received more than 15,000,
Okay, all
so
right.
Oh, absolutely.
they are.
So going forward, we should not see this issue again.
Okay, all right.
Okay, is there a motion?
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the last one is in reference to our vehicle superintendent contract. He receives the same benefits as the union employees, but we've always done it as a past practice, and it's been just well established, but it was never as part of his contract. And he came to me, he was concerned about it, and I don't blame him. It's just, the contract just references benefits, but it doesn't specifically state what those benefits are. So all I do is I include the benefits that we've always paid him. This doesn't give him any more money, any more benefits, any more advantages. All it does is memorialize what we've always done, what he's always paid, and technically what the contract says, but why make it subject to interpretation at a future date?
Yeah, I think we should start doing that with all contracts and start referencing other agreements and just
I agree.
specify all of them.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is everything on the open session agenda. I would entertain a motion to enter into executive session, not to return to open session to discuss strategy with respect to litigation, specifically Kruger versus the Town of West Bridgewater, specifically Teamsters Local Union 653 versus Town of West Bridgewater unfair labor practice, threatened litigation, specifically Peterson Puritan Incorporated versus Town of West Bridgewater, threatened litigation, specifically Ray Rogers versus Town of West Bridgewater, and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, specifically the library union. Since in my opinion as chair, strategizing in open session would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town. I'll ask for a roll